Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good
What we're
morning.
going to do is we're going to take some testimony from you. So we need to have you raise your right hand. We'll have you sworn in, and then we'll proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can put your hand down. Miss Storm, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Milliman, can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Dominic Douglas Milliman.
Okay. And how are you familiar with the parties Porter Ward, Danielle Newburn, or their son, Demetrius?
So I grew up with Porter Ward's oldest boys, Skyler and Reese, and I, on occasion, while living with Porter, uh, was babysitting with Skyler and Reese, their youngest, Demetrius.
Okay. So you indicated that you were living with Porter for a while.
Yes.
Approximately what time frame are we looking at?
Um, I think it was about a year ago for approximately 6 months.
Okay. So so about a year ago you moved out, and prior to that was 6 months you lived there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. And at that time, who lived there with you?
It was me, Porter, and his oldest child, Skylar.
And when Demetrius was there visiting on his parenting time, I'm assuming Demetrius was also there?
Yes. Yes, he was.
Okay. Were you able to observe Porter and Danielle together at all during that time?
Um, Not really. There were short times where he would be home and she would drop him off, but never did I see them together for very long.
Okay. And were you able to observe Porter with Demetrius while you were living with him?
Yes.
How often would you see that?
Um, well, he did work a bit, but anytime he had Demetrius, he was always right there with him, making sure that Demetrius was fed, clothed, bathed. They went out and did a lot of outdoor activities that I wasn't party to, so I can't speak on those, but I do know that he would always come home exhausted after the long fun days that they had.
And when you say he would come home exhausted, are you talking about Porter or Demetrius or both?
Demetrius.
Okay.
Well, probably both, but
And how would you just describe the relationship between Porter and Demetrius as you saw
uh, loving father and adoring son.
it? Okay.
He,
Was there ever a time that you saw Demetrius go without food or clothing while Demetrius was in Porter's care?
no,
Okay. Was there ever a time that you saw Demetrius go without appropriate medical care while he was in Porter's care?
not that I'm aware of. If he got a bump or
Okay.
a bruise because he was playing around as a kid, that was something that we made sure to put ice on.
Okay. Okay. And have you observed all the time you were living there how Danielle speaks to or treats Porter?
Um, I would say it would be a little abrasive at times. Um, there were also periods of time where she would enter the home without notifying anyone. Um, and we would have no idea whether or what was going on. But when we had Demetrius, um, she, I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Yes. So my question was, have you observed how Danielle speaks to or treats Porter?
Yes, yes, I have. Like I said, it was abrasive at times. There was a little bit of argumentative on both sides, but she tended to flare up a bit more than I'd seen with Porter.
All right. And when you say it was abrasive, what can you kind of describe for the court what you mean by abrasive and who was doing the abrasive behavior?
Yes, so Porter would always try to keep things calm and try and solve the situations via just mellow toned speaking. And I would see Donnie at times, she would start to get frustrated or not quite aggressive, but she would start to raise her voice.
Okay. Did you ever see Porter or Danielle during these times resort to physical violence or contact with the other?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so it never reached the levels of a physical altercation between the two of them?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, at least during the times that you observed, I should say.
Yes.
Okay, and at the time that you were living together with Porter, Danielle had already moved out. She was no longer living in the home, correct?
Correct. And Demetrius had his very own
Okay.
room in the house.
Okay. Did Demetrius have his own room at the house the entire time you were living there?
Yes.
Okay. And were you around and living in the home during the time frame that immediately followed Danielle leaving the home with Porter?
I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean.
Sure. So there was a time when Porter and Danielle broke up and ended their romantic relationship. And my understanding is that they were living together, but there was a time where she moved out of that home. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm sure that's what when I knew Porter, they were together. I've known Porter most of my life. I've grown up with his sons. I've seen when he was with Donnie and when he wasn't. And I moved in after he and Donnie had already separated for I'm not sure the length of time, but it's been a minute.
Okay. So I just wanted to verify, as far as in relation to when their relationship ended, where this was in relationship to when you were living there. So it sounds like that ended, and then later on you moved in. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Um, do you remember how often Danielle would actually come over to have parenting time with Demetrius during this time?
How often she would come over to our house and have parenting time?
Yes.
I wasn't
Yes.
aware that she did really. I know there were times where she would occasionally drop off Demetrius with a meal, or when she had come to pick him up, sometimes she would put him in the bath briefly just to get him cleaned up for her house. And I'm not entirely privy to the reasoning behind it.
Sure. Um, and you said that you use occasionally would provide childcare for Demetrius Reporter.
Yes. Yep.
How often would you say you did that?
Um, Really not all that often. Porter would do a really good job of when he had Demetrius, he would keep Demetrius with him and take the time that he needed to either go out and spend time with him or stay at home and take care of his child himself. There were times where Donnie had dropped off Demetrius to us uh, and said she would come pick him up and a day or so later, and we would have Demetrius for upwards to about 4 days after that scheduled time.
So are you saying that there were times that she said she would be back to pick up Demetrius, but then didn't come back?
Yes, without any
Okay.
communication to.
Approximately how many?
I'm sorry.
Please answer. I'm sorry. I didn't, there's a delay and I don't mean to talk over you. Please finish your answer.
Um, there were times where it was no communication between her dropping off Demetrius and up until the very day that she came to pick him up. And that could
So as
last
far as a schedule, so then that could last how long?
anywhere from about 3 to 7 days. It just depended on when she was ready to pick Demetrius up.
Okay. And then just to verify, this time frame is during the time that you were living with Porter. So this was between a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Okay. And how often would you say that this happened where there was a failure to communicate about the parenting time exchange, or that Danielle wouldn't appear for the parenting time, if
I
you
would
know?
I would say out of the few months that I lived there, um, maybe 4 or 5 times, uh, where it had become such a regular event that we had started to kind of make jokes about it.
When you said that you guys would make jokes, do you mean you and Porter?
Yeah, just kind of giggling to ourselves as to when we would see Donnie come pick up Demetrius.
Okay. And was this done in front of Demetrius?
No, no, we weren't. We would never do anything to demonize his mother in front of him.
Okay. Um, did Porter make it clear to you that he didn't want that going on in front of Demetrius?
Yes.
Okay. How did he make that clear to you?
Porter was adamant about making sure that Demetrius wasn't around any sort of foul language or things of that nature, and anything that would bring any cause for concern. And so we did a very good job about making sure that if we swore, it was something that like fire truck in replacement for the F word and things of that nature.
Okay. Um, did Demetrius have a reaction that you could observe to the times that Danielle did not come to pick up for parenting time?
I would have to say that he seemed to be a bit disappointed. Um, and sometimes he would be a little upset because he would sometimes when we were watching him, um, it had been predetermined that she was supposed to be here on a specific day, and Demetrius would be all excited to have his mom pick him up or have his dad pick him up, and during that time, uh, when Donnie didn't show up, I would say just a little sad.
Okay. Um, and you described the relationship already between Porter and Demetrius, but have you been able to witness Demetrius go to his father for comfort?
Yeah, all the time. Demetrius would
Okay.
snuggle right up next to Porter. He just a complete adoration for his father.
Okay. And does that go along with then expressions of love for Porter?
Yes,
Okay. Um, and is Porter equally affectionate back with Demetrius?
100%. Porter has been just an amazing father for Demetrius, and I'm very glad that I got that opportunity to see that. Growing up with Porter as a father figure has always been a wonderful thing because he always made sure us boys were taken care of.
Okay. And that was because you were kind of lumped in with his older boys. Is that true?
Yes, I grew up with them. Our
Okay.
parents worked together, so
Okay. Can you give us an example of how Porter might have tried to provide guidance to Demetrius to be an upstanding young man?
um well, I know he would always make sure that Demetrius tried to keep himself clean. Um he was a messy boy, but he really has shaped up quite a bit. He keeps himself clean, he washes his hand, he helped potty train him. Um there's a lot of things, especially with his character. Porter has really taught him how to he's taught him respect and compassion and how to appropriately show adoration. It's very comforting to see Porter and Demetrius interact.
Okay. And have you ever seen Porter neglect any of the medical needs of Demetrius, large or small?
No,
Okay. Are you Facebook friends at all with Danielle?
I was at one point. I'm not entirely sure if I still am.
Okay. When was the last time you might have checked out her Facebook page?
Oh, probably years ago. I really don't pay much attention.
Okay. Um, did you ever witness Danielle stay at Porter's house while you were living there?
No.
Okay. And have you been able to witness Demetrius interact with Porter's girlfriend, Alicia?
Yes.
All right. How often have you seen that interaction?
Um, well, during the time that I was living with Porter, I got to see a bit of interaction here and there. When I was home, I wasn't working. He actually took me in and helped me get on my feet. So I was home a lot. And Demetrius always had a positive reaction with Alicia. I never saw any sort of malice from either one of them. Uh, I think that Demetrius and Alicia get along very well as probably her daughter. They all get along really well.
Are you saying that Demetrius gets along with Alicia as well as Alicia gets along with her own daughter?
No, well, no, I meant Demetrius, Alicia, and her daughter all get along very well.
Gotcha. Okay. So the three of them, so Alicia and her daughter, who obviously are not related to Demetrius, but they're part of the family unit, he gets along with them equally.
Yes,
Okay. And again, that's based on what you've been able to observe, correct?
correct.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Ives, any cross-examination?
Thank you. To clarify, you had testified that you had been living with Mr. Ward for approximately 6 months. Was that correct?
Yes. I lived with Porter Ward for 6 months.
When did you move in with him?
Um, I think it was around November of, I think I was 22. So late 22, early 23.
Okay, and then so if you lived with him for approximately 6 months, you would have moved out probably by April or May of 2023?
At that time, Porter had moved in with his girlfriend, and we had taken over the lease, me and his two sons.
Okay, do you recall what month it was that Porter moved in with his girlfriend?
I don't recall right offhand.
Okay. Would it have been before summer started?
I think it was spring.
Okay. And so approximately maybe March or April?
Yes, that sounds about right.
And you indicated you were not working, so I take it Mr. Ward was helping you get on your feet?
He was giving me a place to stay and a warm meal.
And did you ever find employment after a while?
Yes, I did.
Okay. When did you start working?
Approximately 2 or 3 weeks after I had moved in with him, I found a job that had given me enough money to assist in some of the bills.
Okay, so you started working full time?
Yes.
So you weren't always in the home each and every day, correct?
No. I mean, I worked, but I was home by the end of the day. I started early morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I got home about 10 hours later.
Um, would you agree at that time, at least at the time you moved in, that Mr. Ward and Miss Newburn, they had been sharing custody of Demetrius, where they had kind of a pattern of shared custody, correct?
I believe that Mr. Ward and Miss Newburn had been via a verbal agreement or a vocal agreement, been sharing custody, but I don't believe there was any set pattern.
Okay, well, to your recollection, do you recall that Demetrius typically would be with Mr. Ward on the weekends, say Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Does that sound correct to you?
When we had Demetrius, if Miss Newbern picked him up when she said she was going to, yes.
All right, and then typically she had Demetrius on typically Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Does that sound correct?
I believe so. But again,
And then,
again, like, I'm sorry, there's a delay. I was gonna say, like I said, when Miss Newbern came and picked him up on time, yes.
The during this time, isn't it true that Miss Newbern dropped off food to your household because there wasn't enough food?
There was times that she would bring food for Demetrius, and that was she might have brought it for Skyler as well. I was working and feeding myself. I believe it was a kind of way of paying Skyler and Porter for babysitting Demetrius, or having not Porter, but having Skyler babysit Demetrius.
And during that time you were living there, was Mr. Ward working an evening shift or a day shift?
I believe he was working 12-hour shifts. I can't remember. I think it was a morning shift.
Was he home in the evenings?
Most days, yes.
Okay. Would you agree also that even Miss Newbern could be abrasive, but isn't it true that Mr. Ward could be abrasive as well?
I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't.
It's just yes or no. Couldn't he be abrasive as well?
I believe that a cat and a dog can both be abrasive, but what I witnessed is that Miss Newbern was oftentimes more abrasive than Mr. Ward. Again, as
But
I
it
said
is,
earlier, that Mr. Ward tried to keep a calm appearance in front of not only Demetrius, but in front of Miss Newbern.
but it is true that he would become aggressive as well, correct?
Anyone can show aggression, but I'm sure that if pushed to that point, yes,
But
Mr.
just,
Ward could be a little aggravated, but never
okay,
to the point of physical.
well, I get that, but he could just be abrasive and aggressive in his demeanor as well, correct? Just yes or no?
Yes.
Um, and you didn't go over to Miss Newbern's house at all during that time, did you?
I believe we dropped some of her things off at one point, but that was it.
But you weren't in her house when she was exercising time with Demetrius, were you?
No, I had no reason to be in Miss Newbern's home.
So, I mean, it's safe to say that when Demetrius is with Miss Newborn, I mean, you don't know, she's, I mean, you're not able to tell us that Miss Newborn contributed to Demetrius's, social skills, learning. I mean, you don't know what was going on in her household, do you?
No, and I don't believe I claimed to either.
Okay. So, I mean, it's fair to say that it's not just Mr. Ward that's brought up Demetrius to be the young man that he is, correct?
I don't believe it only takes one parent. I believe both parents put in some effort for their child.
And when would you agree to me that Demetrius loves his mother a lot?
I'm certain he does. He often will call for his mother. If he ever had a nightmare, he would call for his mother and father.
Okay. And when Miss Newborn, did you ever see exchanges with Demetrius and his mom?
Not frequently, no.
Okay. When Ms. Mom came over to bring him food, was Demetrius happy to see her?
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. And, did you see him, did you see Miss Newbern, appropriately show love and affection to Demetrius at those times?
As far as I'm aware.
While you were there to see them, I mean, did you see that? I mean, did you see anything concerning?
I didn't see anything that would be concerning during the times
Okay.
that she was with Demetrius.
Okay. And, did Demetrius appear to show love and affection for his mom as well?
Yes,
And they're definitely, by that observation, would you agree that they're definitely bonded as mother and child?
I would hope so, yes.
Um, I have no further questions for this witness.
Ms. Storm, any, redirect?
Yes, Ms. Ives indicated that there was potentially a pattern of Thursday through Sunday and Sunday to Wednesday. But is it true that that was the pattern going on the entire time, or is that a pattern that developed later?
It developed later and it would fluctuate.
Okay, and how would it fluctuate?
As I previously stated, there were often times where Porter would get Demetrius and we would babysit him during the times that Porter was working. And uh, Donnie would give Mr. Ward a text message or some sort of notification that she would be picking him up on her scheduled day, and we would oftentimes not see her for an extra 2 to 3 days.
And during that time, during the 2 to 3 days, do you know whether there was communication going from Danielle to Porter regarding any reasons for this, if you know?
I was never told any specific reasoning as to why Miss Newbern was not there. I would check with Porter every morning before he got ready and asked him, "Hey, Porter, is Donnie going to be here today to pick up Demetrius?" And he would say, "I haven't heard anything from her. I will let you boys know as soon as I find out."
And the food that she would she bring over food every time or just when sporadically?
I would say sporadically. There were times where she'd bring over pizza occasionally, but it was not often. A lot of times she would drop Demetrius off at the very beginning with a meal from McDonald's, or something to that effect, and then we wouldn't really hear from her for quite a few days.
Okay. And did anybody ask her to bring that food when she came by?
I believe it was requested once or twice by Skyler, um, but I'm not entirely sure. I know Porter would always bring home food and make sure that we had meals stocked up while Demetrius was here. Sometimes Demetrius would eat through the snacks pretty pretty fast, and so occasionally we would have or Skylar would ask for more food.
Okay, but that's only after the that had been left and prepared for that day had been consumed?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about the aggression on both sides. Can you describe what do you call aggression? Let's describe it in Porter and describe it in Donnie just to compare.
So with Porter being a taller gentleman, uh, and he has a frightening appearance to some people. I can see that being seen as aggressive. Um, but when it came to Miss Newbern, it would be a lot of voice raising and a lot of like sporadic arm movements to try and convey her point or her feelings. And Porter would sit through quite a bit of this berating before he decided to kind of, I would say, just try to clear his voice and speak clearly to where he could get her to stop. I don't believe that he was ever super loud with her or anything like that.
Okay. Has Porter ever thrown or hit anything during these times with Danielle?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you observe Danielle throw or hit anything during any of these exchanges?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And you said there was a time when she rushed into the house. Can you describe what you mean by she rushed into the house and what happened?
Um, yeah, I believe there was a time, and I'm not entirely clear on the details right at the moment, but there was a time where uh Miss Newburn had come through the door without knocking, and I believe Skyler and Demetrius had gone on a walk or something to that effect, and none of us had received any sort of messages that she was going to be showing up, what time she was going to be showing up, and she freaked out and started kind of yelling at us, trying to figure out where Demetrius was, and I believe they were just at the park down the road.
Okay. Okay. And how did that situation resolve?
I believe Skyler had come home and after I had called him and brought Demetrius with him so Danielle could take him.
Okay. Did she stay there and wait until they got home or did she come back?
I'm not too clear on that. I think she had stayed.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
The storm, any recross?
Miss Ives, but I made up, I called Miss Van Wormer the wrong name, or Miss Potter the wrong name earlier. So, could you tell us an instance that you recall of this, what, you seem to, testify that there was this behavior from Miss Newburn. Can you describe a particular instance that this happened?
Are you referring to the sporadic arm movement and voice raising?
Yes, is there what is, I mean, you said that this happened.
There,
Is there a particular
yes, there
instance?
was a time shortly after I had moved in. Miss Newburn was still in the process of moving some of her things, and uh, Demetrius was in mine and Skylar's care, and Porter and Miss Newburn had stepped out, and they were standing by his truck and having some sort of disagreement. I wasn't privy to the information of the agreement or able to hear what had happened, but it was visual. It was visually seen via the front window, as it is a
So you-
giant window.
So this one instance that you recall, you actually couldn't even hear what was being said.
There are ways to tell the mood of a conversation without hearing the conversation.
Okay, but you couldn't hear the conversation, correct?
Correct, because we were inside and they were not.
So you don't know if Mr. Ward was threatening or had used a tone of voice that perhaps could have felt intimidating to Miss Newman, could you?
From what I could see, Mr. Ward was standing still.
Correct, but you couldn't hear the tone or of his voice, could you?
Correct, I couldn't hear anything.
And that's the incident that you recall that shows that Miss Newburn was acting
Abrasive?
abrasive.
That wasn't the only time she had raised her voice, but that was the only time that I'd seen the sporadic arm movements. Again, I wasn't privy to every interaction of Mr. Ward and Miss Newburn.
But you said that you have seen her, act in this manner. I'm asking you to identify at least one instance that you recall.
Okay. There was one time where we were babysitting, me and Skyler, were babysitting young Demetrius. I believe he was 3 at the time, and we had set his stuff on the couch, and she was looking for his shoes and was throwing stuff around trying to find them. And she had started talking to Skyler and me in a rude manner, and she had again talked with her hands. I'm not saying that the hand movements were in an aggressive manner, but the vocal tone was.
So, okay, I was particularly talking about moments in which you observed Miss Newburn and Mr. Ward, because you had testified earlier that you indicated that her behavior was more aggressive than his.
I would object because the original question that she just asked was actually, has he observed Danielle do this? She didn't say do this with Porter standing right there. So that wasn't clear in the question.
That court does recall, Ms. Ives, that was your question, is times that she'd acted abrasive. You didn't qualify that saying when plaintiff was present.
Okay, has there been any particular moments that can you give us a particular moment when you saw Mr. Ward and Miss Newburn together where she was acting, or you heard her abrasive, more so than Mr. Ward?
Are you speaking of the time that they were in a romantic relationship together, or are you speaking about the time that during which that they were separated and I was living there? Because I was privy to both.
Well, I asked you to give me an instance, and you had indicated the instance that you recalled was you saw them outside, but you couldn't hear anything.
Yes, because they wanted to keep young Demetrius away from any sort of arguments.
So that was the only instance that you could think of.
Currently, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Milliman. That will conclude your testimony. You're excused. Have a good day.
You too, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank
What
you.
we will do now, we will take a recess for lunch. It is now 12:11 p.m. We'll come back at 1:30. I guess I would ask the attorneys too during the lunch hour, if you would check your schedules and see what you have tomorrow, because things have been going much slower than anticipated. So if we have to go into tomorrow, I want to see that when you're available.
Your Honor, I know that I am not available much tomorrow. I will take a look during the break to see if there is a way to potentially get some coverage, but I do know that I have neglect and abuse hearings in the morning and afternoon in Kalamazoo and Van Buren tomorrow.
Okay, check your schedules and see when you're available. I'll try to find any other alternate dates, but I don't want to drag these proceedings out. I want to get them over. Like Storm has some of the same other.
Okay, one moment, please. Just to get us back on the recording. We are back on the record for case 2023-1344 DC, Porter Ward versus Daniel Newburn, Attorney Storm for plaintiff, Attorney Ives for defendant. It is 1:33 p.m., March 14, 2024.
Okay. Welcome back. My office has been in contact with both of you, giving us the alternate dates of March 22nd at 1:30 and March 27th at 1:30 p.m. So you have those dates. The notices will be going out to you probably today or tomorrow at the latest. Ms. Storm, proofs are with you. Do you have a next witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. Attorney Ives and I had a chance to talk briefly off the record, and I didn't know if she had a chance to discuss that with her client briefly. While she's looking, can we see whether or not I have anybody waiting in the waiting room to be let in?
You have Mr. David Averill.
Okay, I will have him as my next witness after Ms. Ives, if Ms. Ives has any sort of response to our conversation.
Okay, Ms. Ives.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. What we were talking about is, the school issue is still an issue that is going to need to be decided, but I think we had some conversations that perhaps the matter could be resolved with joint legal and joint physical custody, maintaining. I think it would be really similar to what the interim order says. I think if I understood right, and I might have gotten it wrong, Mr. Ward wanted that Monday and Tuesday after school through 6 p.m. And I had indicated that my client would just like like some type of reciprocal time. And we talked about doing it on maybe Thursday or Friday. Friday is just not doable for her because of the shifts, but she thought maybe this could be worked out with maybe starting her time on Sunday at noon, and then Dad would have those evenings after school through 6 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday. And I don't know if that's an option to work this out. The court obviously still needs to figure out the school issue.
Okay, Ms. Storm, what are your thoughts on that? Or you need to converse with your client or what?
I'll probably need to converse with my client on that last, the counter will say. We would agree that the school is still an issue. We would agree to joint physical custody. Joint legal custody is not one that is agreed to yet at this time. That was something we were trying to discuss to see whether we could reach a resolution. We did not reach that yet at this point. So that would still be before the court. I did talk with my client briefly about reciprocal time on either Thursday and or Friday. I had not had a chance to talk with him yet about Sunday, if the court would
Okay.
potentially give me.
As you're talking, just so you know, if we're going to do joint physical, quite frankly, I don't think I have ever done joint physical without doing joint legal. So not saying we won't, but I'll tell you, I've never done it.
Understood, Your Honor. If I could just have a few moments then to briefly confer with my client.
Sure. If you want to put yourself on mute or go off, you can talk to your client and get back to us. We'll just wait here.
Okay, I'll just mute myself and turn off my video. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ives, you look like you've muted. You're going to talk to your client?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Mute us then.
Thank you. I've had a chance to speak with my client.
Let me wait till Rhonda comes back on.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha. I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Storm.
Thank you. I did have a chance to speak with my client, and he understands the court's position regarding not having bifurcated legal and physical custody before. He's still willing to agree to joint physical custody and still leave joint legal custody up for the court to decide, even though running obviously aware of the risk that even with presenting evidence, the court will still say joint legal. As far as a parenting time schedule, I did discuss with him the parenting time schedule, but he indicated that at that point, he doesn't want to be rushed into an agreement on that, and it may be easier and better to just have the court to determine what the parenting time schedule would be as far as what that looks like.
Okay. So I guess the only thing that we have an agreement on is the parties are agreeing to joint physical custody. Is that correct?
Yes.
It sounds like it, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you inquire of your client so we have that on the record? Ms. Storm, or you first?
Thank you. Porter, did you hear the agreement as we put it on the record? And you understand what joint physical custody means? And you're willing to agree to joint physical custody? Okay, and you understand that
I didn't hear him say anything.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And you understand that the court has given its preface, essentially a preview that if we go with joint physical custody, there is a likelihood that the ultimate result will be joint legal custody. You understand that?
Yeah.
And you still wish to move forward with the legal custody issue with the court, though?
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the remaining issues of school and parenting time, you would have the court continue to have jurisdiction to decide those issues?
Yeah.
Okay. And you understand that we could have, as we continue today's hearing, we could have continued to present evidence regarding the physical custody aspect, correct?
Yeah.
But you're willing to waive that opportunity because you're willing to agree to joint physical custody? And no one's forcing or coercing or somehow putting some pressure on you to agree to this today? And do you believe that this agreement is in Dominic's best interest? Or Demetrius, I'm sorry, Demetrius's best interest?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're willing to be bound by the joint physical custody?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ives?
Thank you. Danielle Newbern, do you agree that, at this point, are you agreeable to joint physical custody of your minor son, Demetrius? Yes, ma'am. And do you believe that that's in his best interest at this time?
You're gonna have to speak up, ma'am. I haven't heard anything you've said.
Okay, well, we'll start again. Ms. Newbern, and speak loud and into the microphone, please. At this point, are you agreeable to your final order being joint physical custody between you and Mr. Ward?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you believe that's in Demetrius's best interest at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand this court could hear further facts and details of that particular issue regarding physical custody, but by doing this agreement, that issue is resolved.
Yes, ma'am.
And you would like the court to accept that agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that we still have to figure out, the parenting time and the legal issue, the legal custody issue, and obviously the school issue, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. With
There you
that,
go.
we
That's
do have
some
an
time.
agreement that, what?
I'm sorry, I think that will save us a little bit of time in our questioning.
It should save quite a bit of time. With that, we do have resolution of the joint physical custody issue. The court then will continue this hearing whether it relates to legal custody, parenting time, and school attendance in this matter. So I'll go back to you, Ms. Storm, your next witness.
If Mr. Dave Averill is still in the waiting room, I'd like to call him.
Yes.
Okay, we'll bring him in. Mr. Averill are going to take some testimony from you, so we'd ask that you raise your right hand, be sworn in, then we'll proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can put your hand down. Go ahead, Ms. Storm.
Mr. Averill, could you please state your name for the record?
David Averill.
Averill, I'm sorry about that. Can you indicate where you work?
I work at Battle Creek Montessori Academy in Springfield, Michigan.
Okay, and what is your title or position there?
Principal. They call me a head of school, but I call it principal.
Okay, and are you familiar with either of the parties, Porter Ward or Danielle Newbern?
Just from seeing them in the parking lot, I don't know them personally, but you see parents. We have a pickup line, so I see people in line and wave to them and stuff, but I don't know all their names, but recognize faces.
Okay, and are you familiar with their son Demetrius?
Yes.
Okay, and how are you familiar with Demetrius?
Because I'm in classrooms a lot, and I, check in on teachers, check to see how things are going. And as a principal, you get to know the students pretty well when you're in and out. And little people love to hug you. So you get a lot of hugs, a lot of kids paying attention to you, smiling at you. So that's how I know him.
Okay, and are you, what sort of contact and interaction have you had with Demetrius in this time enrolled at Battle Creek Montessori?
Just casual. I haven't had any major interactions with him, mostly just checking in to see how he's doing, what he's doing in class, like I do other kids, speaking with them, saying hello, but nothing too great at length.
Okay. And how long have you been the principal at Battle Creek Montessori?
I started in July.
Of 2023?
Mhm.
Okay.
But I'm in my
We're-
23rd year, so as a principal, just this job I started in July.
Okay, so this is your 23rd year as a principal, but your first year at Battle Creek Montessori?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you give a brief description of what the mission statement or goal is of Battle Creek Montessori?
Well, Battle Creek Montessori is really about using Maria Montessori's methods to make sure that students are respected, that we educate the whole child and respect who they are as a person. That's really the center of it. There's a whole lot more than that, but that's really our focus on what we try to do at the heart of Montessori.
Okay. And how is that mission statement or goal achieved?
Through Montessori principles, how we interact with students, how students interact with each other. It's really a personalized, multi-sensory approach. Montessori is a wonderful thing for kids to be involved with. It's purposeful, and also students can self-correct, which is not always something easy for students to do. We really try to encourage independence and students doing a lot of the work and a lot of the choices for their work in the classroom. Teachers do put together a work plan for the day, but within the work plan, there are choices for the students to make, but there is some responsibility that they're learning the things that we know they really would benefit from. So it is structured and systematic too. It's not just, you come in and do whatever you want to do. And our emphasis is also on a community of a school that would all work together. We talk about grace and courtesy. We really want it to be a peaceful, kind of campus where students get along and solve their problems. We have a peace corner where we want them to solve the problems peacefully without fighting or kicking, hitting, that sort of thing. So those are some of our bigger things in order to help us get to that goal.
Okay. And are those principles and methods implemented starting with kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And does that continue all the way through all the grades at
Yep.
at Montessori?
Yeah, all the way up through 8th grade.
Okay. So is Battle Creek Montessori kindergarten through 8th grade?
Actually, pre-K, we have a preschool program all the way through 8th.
Okay.
And the preschool is also Montessori.
Okay. And do you know how Demetrius is doing in school?
I do. I'm not his teacher, so I asked the teacher for some information to share because I thought you guys might ask that. So I guess see where I put it here.
I'm gonna object. Hold on, I'm gonna object because this would be considered hearsay and out of court statement. And I do not believe it should come in.
Okay, Ms. Storm, what's your reply?
I'd like to lay some more foundation potentially.
Okay, if you would, please.
Thank you. Mr. Averill, do you check in on all of your students?
Like I said, I'm in classrooms a lot. We also do NWEA testing on a regular basis with students. So students take an assessment, and then we look at all their assessment data in the the fall, the winter and spring, and we get an idea of where they're at. Then we design interventions for the students so that they have instruction focused directly on what it is that they need. In that way, I've been in meetings with all the students, but I don't have every student in their scores memorized, but we do all get a chance to see how students are doing and how they're progressing or if they're not progressing.
Okay, so are you part of that team that reviews all of this each quarter or period?
Yeah, I'm in charge of that group.
Okay, and so you have to look at all the students, correct?
Yep.
And what you're referencing, without telling us any of the information in it, what is it that you're referencing?
You mean the data?
Yes.
NWA is an assessment, and it sort of gives you an idea, and not sort of, it does give you an idea about where there are RIT bands to see how close students are to the norm, to where most kids should be at kindergarten, where most kids should be at second grade and third grade and so forth like that. And then it gives what area they're in. They call them RIT bands, so that you can compare as an educator. And then within there, you can drill down to see what content standards they need to have more focus on, so the teachers can actually focus instruction for the child in that area or areas.
Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to renew my question as to how the child is doing in school. This is testimony that was very similar to the testimony we heard from the Dudley Elementary regarding 21st Century program and their computer programs that they use to monitor and determine what level the child is performing at.
Okay. Ms. Ives, any response?
Well, I would just indicate, you know, as long as it's the witness is testifying to information that he knows and not what someone has told him.
Okay, well, he stated that he's on the team that reviews all of that particular data, and he's acquainted with what Demetrius is, I guess you say his level is, so I will allow him to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Averill. Based on, now we can't read from your notes because it's not something that's an exhibit, but you can use that to
Right.
refresh your memory. So once you've had a chance to review that, let me know. And then
Yeah.
my question is, how is Demetrius doing in school?
I brought a document with me today that had that information, and I can't find it. I just spread myself out. I will keep looking for it. I'll answer your question, but I just can't seem to get my hands on it right now. I have them all laid out for myself. I apologize for that.
That's okay. You can keep searching and I'll ask some other questions while you continue to look.
Yeah.
What time does school begin and end at Battle Creek Montessori?
We hope and that all students get there by 8 o'clock. That is based on our bus and also when parents get students there. But we'd like them to get there at 8 o'clock.
Okay. And what time does school get out?
Technically, the bell rings at 3 o'clock, and then teachers take have students clean up the room. We have mostly pickup because we actually lost our bus driver a couple weeks back, and so we radio for the kids to come outside, and they usually are probably mostly gone by 3:30, but dismissals actually at 3. That's driving me crazy where I put that sheet.
That's all right. Make sure, just let me make sure you can still hear me.
Yep.
So if the school begins at 8 a.m. for the drop-offs, is there a time frame prior to 8 a.m. that parents and students could be dropped off if parents have to go to work earlier than 8 o'clock?
Yes, that's true. We have a before and after school childcare. Right now, since the bus isn't running, we've actually let parents drop off even earlier than they normally would. So parents can drop their student off as early as 7:30. We gave that as a courtesy to parents just because our bus service wasn't running.
Okay. And how
after
late?
School, oh, sorry.
Yep, that's
After
okay. I was
school-
going to ask after school.
That's okay. After school is till 6 o'clock.
And who is supervising the children before and after school?
The person that's in charge of it is our child care director, Marissa, and she has other people that work for her, and so she kind of coordinates all of that as a staff, and sometimes she has to take over and do it as well.
Okay. Is that purely a childcare structured time before and after school, or is there any sort of educational component to it?
No, it's mostly just the kids will come in, they'll play basketball, they'll play different games. We have games that they can pick from and choose. They will, sometimes if it's really nice out, even in the morning, the childcare people will take them outside, or after school, they'll do that. They'll go on the swings and so on and so forth.
Okay. And if the students had homework or things that they needed to do and in the after school is let out, is there anyone there to assist them?
Yes, there would be. The people could help them, but generally speaking, Montessori work is done within the work cycle and within the classroom. A lot of materials in Montessori are hands-on, manipulative, real life things. They actually do life skills like practicing pouring water, doing things like that, where they actually maybe zipping their coat. It's different things that they actually have little things with zippers on them. They do a lot of life skills. So those materials stay in the classroom. They don't necessarily go out of the classroom. If the teacher has assigned some worksheets though, as practice, then they would have time at the end of the day to work on that as well.
Okay. And in addition to these life skills, do the students get educated in the traditional subjects like math and writing and reading, things of that nature?
Yes, all of the regular subjects that you would have in a traditional school, plus other ones that I've been a principal of a traditional school too, that they don't do, like life skills and some of the things that are extra in Montessori that I think is really good practice for life.
And have you had an opportunity to see how Demetrius does with these life skills or school lessons when you've been in the classroom?
I honestly can't say that without with any certainty. I do know the teacher gave me some information, but I can't no, think I could speak to that with any clarity.
Okay. Were you able to find the information regarding
No.
how Demetrius is doing?
It was just right here, but I do know some of the things that the teacher said and some of the information that she gave.
Object about what the teacher said.
Okay, Carl will sustain the objection.
Uh-oh, you froze.
Nope, that's okay. I was considering my question.
There you go.
Regarding the meetings that you do, who is all part of those meetings?
The teacher, our two school coaches, we have instructional coaches, myself, and sometimes our dean of students or a behavior person. If he's not pulled, it's usually the five of us that work together and look at all the data for all the classrooms.
And for speaking of behavior, has there been any behavioral incidents with Demetrius that you're aware of?
I'll say on two different levels. Our behavior specialist at times has had to chat with him in the classroom. He has been having a hard time orienting himself to Montessori sometimes because he has not been in school enough to really get into the swing of things. So he's had some issues with getting things done at first. Now, lately, he has been doing better about doing the things that he is asked to do. Sometimes there is confusion for him about how to use the materials and what is expected when the rest of the class is quite confident in it. He's had some issues with that just because of his attendance in two different schools.
Is that something that you would anticipate would improve if you were at one school?
Yes, absolutely.
Other than that, though, other than those chats, have there ever been any need for discipline at your office?
No.
And I just let her know that the staff got a little, but again.
Have you had the opportunity to interact at all with my client, Mr. Porter Ward?
Just saying hello. I think I've spoken with him a few times, maybe at open house, but not anything at length.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to interact at all with Ms. Danielle Newbern?
I'm not sure. I don't believe very long either. Like it might have been just a hello and introduce myself at the beginning, an open house, that sort of thing, maybe the car line.
Okay. Do you remember whether Demetrius has any signs in his plan that he might need an IEP or other assistance to ensure that he's meeting his milestones?
I can't speak to that right now. I don't have enough knowledge of that.
Okay. And currently you said there is no bus system, but is that something that you would anticipate coming back at some point?
We're hoping so. Schools are having a really hard time finding bus drivers right now. Partly is because bus driving is a very difficult job to keep your eye on the wheel and manage that many students at once. So it's not always easy to find a bus driver or they don't have the right certification. So I've been actively looking, but I've not had any success in the last few weeks.
Okay. And are the grades how are the grades structured? Are they divided up like a traditional school, or are they some sort of different combination?
We have combination classes. For example, we have a pre-K K class is one situation. We have kindergarten and first. We have two of those classrooms. We have a second, third classroom. We have two of those. We have a 4, 5, 6 framework, and there is two of those. And our oldest class is 7, 8, and that's just one classroom. So they're
Okay.
bunched together with the idea that students learn from each other, older students helping younger students and so forth.
Okay. And does that seem to have any sort of negative impact on the student's ability to meet the benchmarks required for education?
No, absolutely not. Just the opposite.
Okay. Overall, how does Battle Creek Montessori do with testing?
We just had our middle of the year testing. It's sort of by grade level. Some of our grade levels make quite a bit of progress, others not as much. So me being new in the building, I think there's some adjustments that are going to be made this winter, and our scores will go up quite a bit. But there's just like a lot of schools right now, we have areas that are really high and areas that we need to work on.
Okay. And how do you plan a curriculum around each child?
Sort of like we're talking before, you have the Montessori curriculum, the things that are going to be done, what kinds of materials and what kinds of tools are going to be used to teach certain things. So first of all, we have to teach our teachers how each material is used. We say, which ones are you going to put out on a shelf? Because there are a lot of shelves in the classroom that students can choose from. They can take their learning and they can go like on the floor, on a desk, in a comfortable chair. And all of those are designed to meet certain content standards. And so the teacher does a lot of observation, meets with kids, does a lot of one-on-one, and keeps track how they're doing. So it's really interactive with the teacher and the child.
Okay. And have you heard of the Bearcat program in Battle Creek?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So Battle Creek Montessori does not participate in that program that you're aware of?
No, I'm a Lansing guy, so I'm just came in July. I haven't heard of that yet. So maybe
Okay.
something we would.
Okay. Are you familiar with what it is at all?
Yeah, not at this time.
Okay, that's fine. I believe that concludes all the questions I have for this witness. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Ives, any cross-examination?
Hi there, good morning. Can you tell us who is in charge of dropping Demetrius off to school in the morning, if you know?
I don't do drop off. I do pick up at the end of the day. I don't know for sure. I believe I've seen Dad drop him off, but I'm not confident that I know that for sure.
All right, and have you seen who picks Demetrius up at the end of the day?
I believe Dad has quite a bit. At the end of the day, I recognize him, but like I said, I don't memorize which kids are always picked up by who. I'm more worried about whether the parents get upset with each other. When you have a lot of cars in the parking lot, you can have heated situations with parents. So I'm usually out there policing, making sure that the cars get through gracefully. And then Marissa Parker, our preschool person, coordinates that with the actual family. So she talks with them all the time. And I'm out in the parking lot keeping the peace.
And are you familiar with an Alicia Spurlock?
Mm-mm,
I'm sorry, Spurlock?
mm-mm. Not by the name. I might by face, but not by name.
Okay. Are you familiar with the minor child that attends Montessori school named Coralina Spurlock?
I know Coralina. Yes.
Okay. And when you observe Demetrius getting picked up, do you observe Coralina being picked up as well?
I've seen Coralina picked up, but like I said, I'm not over on that side of the parking lot. So I don't always see who's picking the two up. I see her coming out of the building, but I don't always see who's picking up. I apologize.
Okay. And have you been able to look on the screen? You're saying, so if my client has said she's never met you before, how do you explain that if you said she was at a initiation
Well,
Open up.
I might recognize her from the parking lot if she picks up too. Like I might have seen her there, but she just looked familiar to me. I thought she was a parent that picks up students at the end of the day. But I could be
Okay.
mistaken.
Now, are you aware that my client sitting next to me, Miss Newbern, has called your school administration to get information such as grades and attendance?
I know that she asked for, I was asked for what Montessori was all about. I also believe that my secretary told me that one of the parents asked for information about attendance and stuff. I think my secretary took care of that on that level.
Are you aware that she is not on any of the contact information and that your staff was not able to give her a single piece of information about her son?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, and would it surprise you that she's not on the contact information, but Mr. Ward's girlfriend, Alicia Spurlock, is?
I don't have any knowledge of that because I don't know who this child lives with or who is on pickup, that sort of thing. That's between the secretary and the parent. The parents put the child on there. I don't usually read those.
So being the administrator, you have no idea who's responsible for picking up Demetrius Ward.
No, what I was saying is I don't know who's all on the card to be picked up, but the teacher is who brings the students out at the end of the day, and the secretary is also aware of that. But I have over 160 students, so for me to know all of the who picks up who would be quite difficult to do.
Who is Demetrius's teacher, by the way?
Marguerite Grupke.
Marguerite
Grupke.
Grupke?
Mhm.
And would you be surprised to know that this is the first that my client is hearing of her own son's teacher's name?
I don't have any comment, and I don't know stuff.
I would object as to the fact that how would he have knowledge of this?
Okay, Miss Ives?
Well, I'm just asking if you'd be surprised to learn that, that's all.
And I would
Well,
ask why that's
I'm
relevant.
not gonna speculate as to what somebody's surprised about, so I will sustain the objection.
Thank you.
How many kids are in Miss Rupke's class that Demetrius, I'm sorry, Demetrius attends?
Approximately 20. We've had some kids leave and some kids come in. I believe we're at about 20.
Do you think the parents of Demetrius should be placed on the contact list of the child?
Objection as to why his opinion is relevant and what this is relevant towards today.
Miss Ives, how is it
I'll rephrase the
relevant?
question.
What?
I'll rephrase the question.
Okay,
Is it a policy that typically the parents are put on the contact list, both parents?
Really depends on the custody situation.
Are you aware that Demetrius also attends the Dudley Elementary?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and are you aware that he goes there on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays?
I know the schedule was on that sheet of paper that I have. I know that it's, I think, about 3 days a week at Dudley and 2 days a week in our school is, I believe, what the breakdown is right now.
Okay, and if I indicated that he goes to your school every other Thursday, would that be correct?
I believe that's correct, but like I said, I don't have that memorized. I just know it was a 3 to 2 split for him. Hey, sir, can I get a glass of water? Is it possible to get a glass of water? I'm sorry. Can you? I was just asking for a glass of water. I apologize.
Okay.
No, better than night.
Where you just started working at this position in July of 2023?
That's correct.
Where were you working prior to this?
In Flint, Michigan, as an educational consultant. The last 4 or 5 years, I've been a consultant teaching teachers how to be teachers for a few years. And before that, I was an administrator for 22 years at another district.
Okay, was that public or private? Or Montessori?
Public.
Would you agree that not every child is suitable for the learning style that's presented in a Montessori school?
Yes, I would. And I always say that not every child is good at traditional. It really depends on the child.
And if Demetrius is excelling at math and reading above his grade level in normal public school, would you say that he's thriving in that school?
Objection as to why his opinion is necessary. He's not been qualified as an expert, and his opinion does not have bearing.
Ms. Ives, how is that relevant?
All right, I will,
Okay,
we'll cancel the question. Let me give me 1 second to confer with my client.
okay.
Give me a second to look for that paper one more time.
Okay,
I have no further questions of this witness, but
okay.
if he has found his paper, I would have no objection to exploration of that issue, since he couldn't
Okay.
find it.
Sir, I have one question. You stated that your school is, again, services basically kindergarten through 8th grade. So that you have no high school, correct?
That is correct.
And what do you do when the child is of high school age? Do they just simply get filtered or dispersed among all the schools that may be in their particular, where their residence is?
That's often the case, that if they have a school district that has a better reputation than another school district, that often will lead parents to where they want to go. We as staff try to work with the counselors at any of the high schools that the students go to and try to transition them, whether the teacher or somebody from the school counselor will come to us or we can go to them. We just want to make sure that a child has a good transition. We have purposely set up our 7-8 program so that it's more Montessori toward the beginning of the year, and it moves much more toward traditional by the end of the year, so that the kids have more of an idea of, sitting at and chairs at a table, the things that more traditional schools would do. So that's how we are trying to bridge Montessori onto a public school setting.
Okay. How many, for instance, at the current time in Demetrius's class, how many students are in that class?
About 20. Like I said, we had about 20, but we've had a couple comings and goings over the last few weeks.
Okay. And how many students total in your school?
About 151 right now. So it's a smaller school.
Do you have any organized sports programs?
We do not at this time. One of our teachers, Miss Mo, is working to put something together. We do have Girls on the Run, which is an after-school program that students can get involved in. But we are going to be doing some enrichment courses. Our school board just passed or allowed teachers to do enrichment, and one of those is a sports program, but it's still in the works getting it organized.
Okay.
It's probably going to be basketball.
Ms. Storm, anything as a result of the cross-examination or my questions?
No, thank you.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Ives.
Thank you. Because earlier, Mr. Harville, you indicated that, I guess in Demetrius' class, he would have K, first and second grade. Is that what you said?
Just K in first.
Just K and first.
Yeah.
And with kindergartners, like of his age group, do you know what the breakdown would be between first and graders and kindergartners?
I believe in that classroom there are more first graders than kindergartners, but I don't know the exact amount because, like I said, it's fluctuated a little bit lately, so I don't know the exact number. If you wanted me to, I would need to get out of this, shrink it, and I have all that information on my computer if that's important to you.
No, that's not necessary. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Storm?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Averell, thank you for your testimony. That concludes. You're free to go and have a good day.
All right, thank you, guys.
Let's Storm, next witness.
Do I have any other witnesses in the waiting room waiting for us?
Not at this time.
No.
Okay. At this time, then I will start by calling my client and I will pause. If you could let me know if any of my other witnesses pop in, I'd like to pause my client to get them done.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ward, if you would raise your right hand, we'll have you sworn in and speak up when you're talking, because quite frankly, if I can't hear it, it's not evidence, okay?
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do we have somebody come in?
This says iPhone.
Hold on, we had somebody that came in on an iPhone, so before we get started, if it is your witness, I'd rather do that than break up your
Let me see.
client's testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody apparently didn't read the directions that say on there to re-identify yourself on your device, so we know who you are.
iPhone, what is your name, please?
iPhone, you're muted, so you'll have to unmute so we can hear what you're saying.
There
Are
you go.
a
My
witness in
apologies.
this
Having
case, sir?
technical difficulties. My name is Zachary Ainger.
Are you a witness in this case?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is that one of your witnesses, Ms. Storm?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Okay.
What was the name again, please?
Zachary
Zachary Ainger.
Ottinger, okay.
How do you spell that?
How do you spell your last name, sir?
Ottinger.
We're just renaming your device so we have your name.
Okay.
Yes, and my apologies for not doing it before.
Nope. Ms. Ives, are you with us? I know you're muted, so I don't know if you're talking to your client or what.
Yes, I was just finding my notes for this witness, Your Honor. I'm here.
Oh, okay, well, why don't we do this? Mr. Ottinger will take your testimony so you can get in and out, and at this point, if you would raise your right hand, we'll have you sworn in, then we'll proceed.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Storm.
Thank you. Mr. Ottinger, can you please state your name for the record?
Zachary Ainger.
Okay. And are you familiar with either of the parties, Porter Ward or Danielle Newburn?
I'm very close to both of them.
Okay. And how long have you known, we'll start with Porter. How long have you known him?
About 5 years now.
And how long have you been acquainted with Ms. Danielle Newburn?
Exactly the same.
Okay. Did you meet them at the same time?
I met them when they were in a relationship together. So yes, I met them together.
Okay. Are you familiar with their son, Demetrius?
I am.
Okay. How, well, let me take that back and I'll start again. Have you been able to observe, you said that you saw Porter and Danielle when you first met them, that they were together in a relationship. Is that correct?
Correct.
So were you able to observe them while they were in a relationship?
Not as much as you might think, but when they were together, yeah.
Okay. How frequently would you say you saw them while they were in a relationship together?
If I had to take an educated guess, I would say at least once every couple of weeks.
Once every couple of weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know this is going back, but just briefly, what was the relationship between Porter and Danielle like at that time?
I didn't personally see anything that I would see as concerning from either parties. I mean, outside of normal spousal bickering, I mean, it wasn't nothing extravagant, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, yep. And then after Porter and Danielle broke up, did you have a chance to observe any of their interactions together?
No, and if I had, is nothing in my memory.
Okay. Have you been able to observe Porter interact with his son Demetrius?
Yes.
How do Porter and Demetrius interact with each other?
I've never seen anything out of the normal outside of a father-son relationship.
Does Porter show affection for Demetrius?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Uh, Outside of hugs, pick him up. I never saw any like, yeah, I was just being an affectionate father. I was just hugging him, talking to him. Just what I've seen in their interactions.
Okay. I'm going to go back to a specific date of October 19th, 2022. Do you remember that date at all?
I believe I do.
Okay. If I said this was an incident where Ms. Newbern had hit a deer that day, would that confirm your recollection of that day?
Yes.
Okay. What do you remember from October 19th, 2022? How did you get involved in that situation?
Well, Porter and myself over the years have gotten awfully close, and I was in Batter Creek and I received a phone call from Porter telling me that Nala or Danielle had been had hit a deer and was stranded on the side of the highway just north of Coldwater into Concha, and asked that if I would go down there and get it. I then got on the highway and I drove down and picked her up and took her
Okay.
home.
All right. So you picked her up and took her home then?
Yes.
Okay. When you first got there, what did you observe?
A car that had been hit by a deer and a woman that was pretty shook up about it.
Okay. And you say she was pretty shook up. Can you describe what Ms. Newbern was doing or looking like? What made you think she was shook up?
Uh, she was rather emotional from the occurrence, and she was crying. She was more or less freaking out a little bit, just emotional. Something catastrophic just happened, and she was still trying to process it, from what I gathered.
Okay. Did she make any other statements to you about how she was feeling at that time?
Yeah. She had made a remark uh, that at the time I didn't really take seriously, but I took serious enough to let Porter know about it. Just, hey, you might want to check on her in a day or two because she seemed pretty upset. But she had made a remark of something along the lines of ending her life.
I'm sorry, you cut out there a little bit. What was that last
My
phrase you said?
apologies. She made a comment in her ranting while she was venting to me that I couldn't possibly give you the specifics, but I know that it was the one specific phrase had something to do with her being overwhelmed in the situation and that she just didn't want to be there anymore. And the words I want came out of her mouth, but it seemed like that's the topic that she was dancing around while she was talking to me.
Okay. And you said when you first heard this, you didn't take it seriously. Why not?
Because it seemed like she was just pretty worked up from the wreck. But then again, I don't know her nearly as well as say Porter would have at the time. So that's why I let him know, just so, hey, you might want to check on her in a day or two just to make sure she was all right and that it was just the wreck.
Okay. And when you took Ms. Newbern home, was she in a calmer state of emotional state? Had she been able to calm down at that point from the wreck?
Yeah, by the time we had gotten to her home and I had dropped her off, It was about a 40-minute drive. She had simmered down quite a bit by that point.
Did you say anything to her about the remark that she made?
If I said anything, I honestly, I don't have distinct memories of the conversation.
That's
I
okay.
believe I said something along the lines of, I said the same thing I say to anybody who I feel might be struggling with mental health, or that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And she's like, look, it sucks. It sure does, but you'll get through it. Everything's going to be all right. And then the whole conversation changed in a different direction. And that was the end of that.
Okay, and that's fine. I don't want you to guess or speculate about things, only what you remember. And you remembered telling Porter about this so that he could check in on her?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know whether she took any additional steps towards that feeling at that point?
Well, I know that at least while she was with me, there was no form of self-harm or of any kind. I can't speak on what happened after she walked through her front door. I wasn't there.
Okay. And so you don't have any knowledge as to what happened after you were able to drop her off at her home, correct?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Is this sort of statement something that you had heard Danielle say before?
Not that I had personally heard her say, no.
Okay. Had you personally ever witnessed Danielle in a similar shaken, venting state?
Nothing outside of normal, frustrations in day-to-day life. I haven't seen her like that again, no.
During the times that you've observed Demetrius with Porter, has Demetrius ever been gone hungry, not had food available for him?
Not that I've ever been able to see.
Okay.
And I genuinely believe that wouldn't be the case.
Okay. During the times that you've seen Demetrius with Porter, has there ever been a time that Demetrius didn't have proper fitting clothes or proper clothes for the elements?
Not that I've ever observed.
Okay. Have you ever seen Porter neglect any medical needs of Demetrius, large or small?
I can't speak on that. I've had no interaction with him in anything medical.
That's fine. That's just what I wanted to verify. Are you Facebook friends at all with Danielle?
I believe I am, yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to view her social media page on Facebook page?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, Ms. Ives, cross-examination.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are you still friends with both the parties?
I would say I'm friends with both, yes.
And do you believe that, Miss Newborn, just like Mr. Ward, loves Demetrius?
I believe her to love Demetrius, yes.
Have you ever seen, Demetrius and Miss Newborn together?
I have, yes.
And do you believe that they show love and affection towards each other?
I do.
Do you believe that either of the parties, either Miss Newborn or Mr. Ward, is abusive in any way to Demetrius?
No. I
Um,
wholeheartedly believe neither one of them would lay a hand on that child.
Do you have any concerns that Demetrius might be in any danger with his mom?
Not that I've seen personally.
Do you believe that Demetrius is in any danger with his dad?
No.
And going back to this incident where she hit this deer, was her car pretty wrecked?
It was inoperable at the time, and I do believe she had to send for a tow truck at a later day.
And is it safe to say that her mode of transportation pretty much got terminated? as a result of that deer collision?
At least for the time being at that moment, yeah.
And, because you said that she was pretty upset.
Yes, she was.
Um, would you, since you've maintained your friendship with her since that date, I mean, that happened back in October of 2022. Have you seen her since then?
Yes,
Would you say numerous times?
I'd say definitely more than a handful.
Do you, would you agree, at least the interactions that you've had, would you agree that she is mentally stable? Is at all those times that you've seen her since then?
Objection, as he is not an expert to be able to come to any sort of conclusion as to mental health or things of that stability.
Well, I'll change the manner of the question, Your Honor.
Thank you.
In the times that you've actually been or seen Miss Newbern, have you ever seen that type of just very behavior that you described earlier?
No, the only time I personally witnessed her break down and cry like that was when she hit the deer and I went to go pick her up. I haven't seen anything like that personally since then.
And why didn't Mr. Porter, or I'm sorry, Mr. Ward, go and help her? Why did he call you?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't remember what he told me when he asked. Like I said, this was a few years ago. All I know is my friend called me and asked to go help the mother of his kid, and I went to go help her.
Yeah, back when you knew these parties when they were together, did you ever see them fight at all?
Not anything outside of a normal bicker like any old normal couple would be. I never saw anything escalate past or anything violent or boisterous or anything of that matter.
So at least when you knew them, would you say that they were, for the most part, respectful to each other and communicated appropriately?
I can say that at least when I knew them together, I witnessed that. Yes, I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I know that at least when they were in front of me, I never saw anything that would throw alarms up for me.
We have no further questions.
Okay. Hey, Ms. Storm, any redirect?
Just a few. You said that you saw Ms. Newbern out in the public and just out and about since October of 2022.
Yes.
Was Demetrius with her at all?
One time recently, I remember seeing her with Demetrius, but a lot of the times that I have seen her has been at her places of employment, so Demetrius wasn't there.
Okay. And where was she when you saw her recently with Demetrius?
Freedom Firearms.
What is Freedom Firearms?
It's a gun shop in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Okay. Is that somewhere where Ms. Newbern works that you're aware of?
No, she does not work that night.
Was she there as a customer that you're aware of?
I believe she wasn't. She was there visiting Scott Mitchell.
Okay.
A man that she calls her brother. I don't necessarily know what that exactly is, but she was there talking to him. She wasn't there as a customer.
Okay. And where was Demetrius while she was talking with Mr. Mitchell?
Right next to her.
Okay. Was he interacting with any of the firearms or accessories?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good. Do you know, were you there the entire time she was there, or were you kind of an in and out?
No, I was there when she arrived, and I left before she did. I don't know how long she was there after I left.
How long was she there while you were there?
I would say maybe about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I was on my way out the door when she walked in. I only stayed as long as I did to say hi to her and to talk to Demetrius.
Okay, thank you. I believe that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Ives?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attinger, thank you for your testimony. You're free to go. Have a good day.
You as well, sir.
Do I have any other witnesses hanging out in the waiting room at this time?
I have a Skyler Ward.
Okay, I'll call them next.
Okay, let's bring them in. Mr. Ward, you're gonna have to unmute.
My bad. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right.
Are you going to appear on video or are you just gonna appear verbally?
There you go.
Okay.
There you
Are you driving, sir?
No, I'm just sitting in my car. There's a
Okay.
lot in my house.
Okay, sir, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna have you sworn in, and I don't mean any disrespect, but because your dad is also Mr. Ward, we'll probably refer to you as Skyler. Is that all right?
Yes, that is fine.
Just for purpose of the record, because if at some point later we have to, it's gonna be confusing if we keep talking to Mr. Ward here and then Mr. Ward at a different time, so we'll just refer to you as Skyler. So, sir, if you would raise your right hand, we'll have you sworn in, and we'll proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Storm.
Thank you. Skylar, can you please state your full name for the record?
Skyler Justin Alexander Ward.
Okay. And are you the son of Porter Ward?
Correct.
How old are you?
I am 22.
And obviously you know your father, Porter Ward. Are you familiar with Ms. Danielle Newbern?
Yes.
All right. And how about their son, Demetrius?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you known them?
I've known Demetrius his entire life and Daniel Newbern about the same amount of time.
About the same amount of time as you've known Demetrius?
Yes.
Okay. And at any point had you been living with your father, Porter Ward?
Yes.
And is that during the lifetime of Demetrius?
Yep.
How long, let's start with what time period did you live with your father?
I don't remember exactly when I started living with him.
Okay. When do you remember moving out?
Moving out was, I want to say mid to late 2022.
Okay. And prior to that, who was living in the home with you while you were living with your father?
For a brief period of time, my younger brother, Reese Ward, and my father.
Okay. And Demetrius as well?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever provide childcare for Demetrius?
Whenever my father was at work,
Okay. And how old? Go ahead.
No, that was it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I'm sorry. It's a little delay on this end, so I didn't mean to interrupt your question, your answer. How often would you say that you needed to watch Demetrius, and for how long would it usually be?
Usually just a few hours at a time. My dad would work weekdays, so towards the end of the day, when it'd be time for Demetrius to go to bed, he would usually be at work.
Okay. And at that time, was your father working second or third shift?
His second shift, I believe.
Second shift? Okay. And have you been able to directly witness Danielle and Porter interact with each other?
Yes.
How often would you say you've seen that?
Usually whenever she would want something from him, mainly.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
So if she needed him to do something or work on her car, if she needed him to go get something that she could go get herself but wouldn't want to.
Okay. And were you there the day that the parties broke up?
I don't believe I was there the exact day they broke up. I was there afterwards.
Okay. And did you witness any sort of heated interactions between Porter and Donnie at that time?
Not directly, no.
Okay. Have you witnessed any heated interactions between Donnie and Porter since then?
No.
Have you had the opportunity to see Danielle with Demetrius?
Whenever she's picking him up,
And how do they typically interact with each other?
it's usually a pretty quick get it done, get her out of here kind of thing.
Okay. Does Demetrius seem happy to see his mom?
Yeah.
And when your dad would come home, would Demetrius be happy to see him?
Yes.
During the time that you were living at your father's, do you know whether or not there was a like a parenting time schedule that the parties were following?
So there was supposed to be, um, whenever my dad was there, Demetrius was with him nonstop. Donnie was supposed to show up at certain times, say to like put him to bed or something. And it was about a 50-50 shot she would actually show up.
Okay. And the times that she didn't show up, was Demetrius aware that she was supposed to show up?
Yes.
What was Demetrius's response when she didn't show up?
It was usually, where's mommy? When's mommy coming?
Have you been around Demetrius recently for anything like that where that similar situation might have happened?
Not recently, no.
Okay. During the times that you've seen Danielle and your father interact, how would your father treat Danielle?
With with respect for anyone you would really talk to, just
Okay,
no.
so when you say with respect towards anyone really, are you trying to, can you just explain what you mean by that? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I'm sorry. You're okay. It's the respect you would show like a typical person in public.
Okay,
Like, yeah.
so he didn't treat her any differently just because he knew her. He gave her the same courtesy as anyone else he would meet, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. How did Danielle treat or interact with your father, from what you were able to directly observe?
So a lot of times it'd be the same way. She had a tendency to start throwing a lot more disrespect out there depending on given situation.
You know, were you there for those situations where the disrespect would happen?
I think once or twice.
Okay, so let's only talk about the times that you were there for and you actually observed. Give us an example of what happened during one of those times.
Um, Say like there's something going on like Christmas or something. We're trying to get everything done that we were trying to do with him, and she'd set up a certain time for it and like wouldn't be really understanding on like that we are trying to get stuff done. We understand that she's going to see him too, but there's got to be like a mutual understanding there that it is Christmas. He wants to play with his toys. He's got other toys to open, kind of stuff.
Okay, so if I understand you, you're saying that there would be disagreements around things like holidays and whose plans, when those cutoff time starts and end would be?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, did did you ever see Danielle when you were in her presence? Did she ever lose her temper or get into an argument with your father?
A few times, yes.
Okay. Again, we only want to talk about the times that you directly observed. Is there an example of one of the times that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. In those times when that would happen, how would your father react?
He would do his best to stay calm in the situation. If he couldn't calm himself down, he would go somewhere that he could calm down, remove himself from the situation, I guess you
Okay.
could say.
And did any of the interactions between Danielle and your father ever escalate to a physical altercation or anything like that?
No,
Okay. She never got physically aggressive with him and he never got physically aggressive with her?
not from what I've ever seen, no.
From what you've directly observed, that is. Okay. Um, when your dad and Danielle were living together, were you able to observe how they shared the duties for Demetrius?
Yes.
How did they divide those duties?
So a lot of it was mainly him with my dad. So there's a few times here and there Donnie would get him out for like whenever the doctor is coming over. Like changing his diaper, putting him to sleep a few times. That's about it.
Okay. And were you living with your father when after Danielle moved out after they separated residences?
Yes.
Who was the primary caregiver for Demetrius at that time?
My father.
Did your father cook meals?
Yes.
Did he did you ever see him not provide food or have food available for Danielle, or excuse me, Demetrius?
No. He always had food.
Okay. Did you ever have a time where you saw Demetrius without proper clothing or for the either fitting wise or for the elements?
Nope, he always had clothes.
Did you ever see Demetrius go without appropriate medical care, whether it be a small injury or a big injury?
No, he always went right in for anything that happened.
Okay. And during that time after the parties broke up that you were living together, did you said there were times that Danielle would say that she would be coming by to see Demetrius, but then not show up?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate on approximately how many times that happened?
If she was supposed to come over each day out of a week, I'd say she'd show up about 3 times out of the week.
Okay, so she'd miss about 2/5 of them roughly.
Yeah.
Would you say that Demetrius and your father are bonded?
Yes.
Do they have a good relationship and are affectionate with each other?
Yes.
Do you know whether Demetrius has a good relationship with his mother and is bonded with her?
I do not.
Um, have you observed your father try to guide Demetrius to be a good young man?
Yes.
Can you give us an example of how you've witnessed that?
Um, say if he's having an issue or he's like throwing a tantrum in public, my dad will sit there and talk it out with him and get him to understand like what he was doing was wrong or like how to calm down in the situation.
Okay. And do you remember, well, let me just back up and say, does Danielle ever contact you to talk to you about anything about Porter or Demetrius?
No.
Do you remember an incident that happened approximately on October 15th of 2022? In which Danielle was trying to reach your father?
She didn't reach out to me directly.
Okay, so you weren't one of the individuals she reached out to that day?
No, I believe she reached out to my brother and Dominic.
Okay. Let me see if I have any other questions. For a second there, I lost my window. I thought I disconnected again. How often do you, if you remember back when you were living together with your father, do you know how often Danielle would have overnights with Demetrius?
So like he would go over to her place or
Yes, where he would go have parenting time and stay with her.
usually I think there was a rough handful of times that he actually went over and stayed the night. A lot of times he'd go over there for a few hours and then get pawned off to his grandmother.
Okay. And do you know, again, what time frame we're looking at here? How long approximately were you living with your father during all of this? Did you say basically from the time Demetrius was born?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been able to observe the interactions between Demetrius and Alicia?
Yes.
Can you give us a summary or an explanation, a description of what you've observed between Alicia and Demetrius?
Demetrius absolutely loves Alicia. He treats her like she is his mother.
Okay. And he shows affection to her.
Yes.
Is she affectionate back with him?
Yes, she is.
Have you had a chance to observe Demetrius with Alicia's daughter, whose name I've already forgotten? I'm so sorry. She was mentioned earlier.
No, you're all
But
right.
her
Yes.
daughter.
That he treats her like she is his sister. For all he cares, that is his blood sister.
Okay. After Danielle and your father broke up, was there a time that Donnie would ever stay overnight at your father's house before he started dating Alicia?
No.
Okay. Or Alina, that was the name that came to me. While Porter and Donnie were together, how would you describe the division of duties and who did what?
It was really heavily based on my father.
And why, do you know why it was that way?
I mean,
If you
pers-
don't know, that's okay. I don't want you to guess, but do you know potentially why it was that way?
I do not know for a fact. I personally think that she didn't want to be a full-time mother.
Okay. Did Donnie or your father do primarily the cooking, or was it shared?
It is my father.
Same question when it comes to cleaning. Was it primarily one or the other, or was that shared?
It was primarily my father.
And you said that she would go during that time, stretches of time without having an overnight with Demetrius?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, do you remember approximately how long any of those stretches were?
Uh,
And again, if you don't know, that's okay. I just wanted to, if you do know.
yeah, I don't exactly know off the top of my head there.
That's okay. Have you ever heard Danielle threaten your father in any way?
No.
Okay. All right. I believe that concludes my questions for this witness. Thank you.
Okay, Skyler, Ms. Ives will have some questions. Go ahead, Ms. Ives.
Hi, good afternoon, Skyler.
Hello.
Do you recall how old Demetrius is when you officially moved in with your father and Danielle?
I believe he was just a couple months old,
About, would you say 2 months old?
roughly.
Okay. And, when he was initially born, is it true to say Danielle and your dad were, I mean, they got along really well? Would you agree?
From what I had seen, yes.
And they were both very much in love with their new baby, correct?
Yeah.
And is it safe to say that they both were involved in routine decisions regarding the baby? I mean, they both each took part in what the baby was going to eat and the diet of the baby and just the general overall care, correct?
Yeah.
And I understand you also kind of moved in and moved out a few times, correct?
For a few days at a time, really.
Okay. So, you would, I mean, how long do you, so after you moved in, after Demetrius was about 2 months old, how long do you think you stayed living with the parties before you moved out again?
It's a couple months. I'd move out for a week or two and end up coming back.
Okay. And, at some point, your Miss Newburn and your dad, they officially broke up. And they never moved back in together.
Yeah. Yep.
Would you agree that that was in about, do you recall when that was precisely?
I do not recall when that was precisely.
And it's because they kind of got back together and broke up and were still seeing each other even when they were living apart at times, correct?
Not that I know of. I just know that one of the stretches that I went back to my mother's house, when I came back, they were split apart.
Okay. And during some of that time when you were living with your dad, I understand your dad was working a night shift, correct?
He worked a second shift, so later in the afternoon till just after sunset, really.
Okay. And do you recall that Danielle would come over and bring, whether you need it or not, she'd come over and bring you guys food, you and Demetrius. Do you recall that?
I do recall that. A lot of times it was just food for Demetrius.
Okay. And do you recall a lot of times that your dad was not there and she would bring over things for Demetrius and take care of him, bring him clothes, things like that?
Yes.
Okay. And clean his room.
She would sit there with him and clean the room. Yes.
And she would, provide things that a mom would do, just be with her son.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that Demetrius has a loving relationship with his mom as well?
To my knowledge, yes.
And do you think it'd be fair to say that Demetrius loves both of his parents very much, that in your observations?
Yes.
Early on when you were originally living there, when Demetrius was an infant, he had numerous baby checkups at the doctor.
The doctor would come to correct.
And do you recall who would, when he went to his well checkups though, at the doctor's office, it was typically that initially both your mom and dad would take them
Objection,
together.
this is testimony through the attorney now. She's saying, do you know this? Do you know that? That's not how this should be working, and she's not the one who's testifying.
Well,
change it.
maybe reword your questions, Ms. Ives.
I will. Is it true that both your dad and Miss Newburn would take Demetrius to the doctor?
Objection, because again, how does he have the knowledge of who took the child to the doctor each time?
Lay a foundation, Ms. Ives.
Do you have any knowledge of who, when you were living there, were you aware of times when Demetrius went to the doctor?
Yes.
And on these occasions when he went to the doctor, isn't it true that both your dad and Miss Newborn would take him to the doctor?
I am not exactly sure who would be taking him to the doctor each time. A lot of times when they would take him to the doctor is when I would be able to plan my times to go out and be able to hang out with my friends or figure out a way to make some money.
You had indicated that Miss Newburn had lost her temper. Isn't it true that your dad had lost his temper too on occasion?
Nothing more than verbally. He would, again, remove himself from the situation.
But he would lose his temper verbally at least a few times, correct?
Not really more than a few times.
But the answer is yes, he would lose his temper at times.
I suppose, yes.
Skylar, do you recall when Demetrius started daycare at Bright Lights?
Yes.
And at that time, both your dad and Miss Newburn agreed that he would start attending daycare there, correct?
Objection, how does he have the knowledge of this? He was not involved in the decision making.
If he knows,
If you know.
I do not know exactly. I was not there for the decision making of that. I just recall when he started.
Okay. And at that point in time, Mr. Ward and Miss Newburn were living apart, correct?
Yes.
And at that time, you also assisted your dad in picking up Demetrius from daycare at various times?
At various times, yes. He had swapped over to first shift so that he would be able to spend the day with Demetrius, and he wouldn't get out of work until like 45 minutes after Demetrius is supposed to be out.
Okay. And at that time, Miss Newburn started working a day shift as well, correct?
I believe so.
I mean, again, I would object. He says he believes so, but this is speculation. How would Mr. Skyler Ward have any personal knowledge of a change in Ms. Danielle Newburn's schedule? He can say, I guess so, but we're still speculating. It's an
we'll
inappropriate
take
question.
it for what it's worth and what his response was. Skylar, don't guess. If you don't know, just say you don't know.
I have no more questions.
Okay, Ms. Storm, anything else?
I just want to compare. When you say losing temper, what does it look like when your dad loses his temper?
Really, it's just he raises his voice a little bit. And
Okay,
just,
he gets loud.
yeah, he gets a
Okay.
little loud.
Okay, how does losing temper look like when Danielle Newburn loses her temper?
From what I've seen, there's things flying through the air, bit of screaming.
So she's loud and throwing things?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's talk about frequency. How often, you said there were not really more than a few times that you saw your dad lose his temper. What about for Ms. Newburn? How often did you see her lose her temper?
Directly, I hadn't seen it at all. Anytime that had happened, I'd heard it coming from the bedroom.
Okay, so you didn't see it, but you could hear. That's how you knew about how loud she got.
Yes.
Okay. On the frequency then of getting loud, we'll just talk about both parties getting loud with each other. Frequency of your father versus frequency of Ms. Newburn then.
So my father wasn't very frequent at all. So Donnie, I've heard quite a few times, and then it would usually end with her stomping out of the house.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
Anything else, Ms. Ives?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Skylar, thank you for your testimony. Your excuse. Have a good day.
You as well.
Any other witnesses?
I have a Stephanie Garcia.
We have a Stephanie Garcia.
Yep, that's my witness. I'd like to call her next.
Okay, we'll bring her in. Ms. Garcia, you need to unmute.
You are still muted, ma'am.
Hit the mic on the lower left side of your screen. You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Ms. Garcia, we're gonna take some testimony from you, so we'll need to have you raise your right hand. We'll have you sworn in, then we'll proceed.
okay,
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Storm.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Could you please state your name for the record?
Stephanie Garcia.
And how are you employed?
I'm the Human Resources Manager at Advanced Special Tools.
And are you familiar with Mr. Porter Ward?
Yes,
How or do you know him?
I'm the HR Manager at Advanced Special Tools.
And is that where he works?
Yes,
Okay. And is that the only way that you are familiar with Mr. Porter Ward?
yes.
Can you tell the court what his current work schedule is as far as what shift and what hours?
His current work schedule is first shift Monday through Friday, 6:00 a.m. until 2:00 p.m.
Okay. And you said that's Monday through Friday?
Yes,
Does he ever have to work weekends?
yes. He's also on call. He can be called in at any time for 2 hours if machines go down.
Okay. So he can be called in for, you said up to 2 hours?
Yes,
Okay. And is there any flexibility in the start or end time that he has for his shift?
no,
Does he have a time clock he has to punch in and out?
yes,
Okay. Does he receive employer benefits such as health insurance?
yes.
And do you know what his health insurance premium is?
Yes, it is $121.42 a month. That is what he is responsible for.
Okay. And do you know who that covers? Is it, I'm assuming it's my client, but does it include anyone else?
Yes, it includes Demetrius Ward.
Okay. And is that medical, vision, and dental?
Yes,
Okay. And how often is Porter paid?
he's paid weekly.
And that 121.42 is the monthly cost?
Correct.
Okay. And has Porter always been on first shift?
He has not.
Okay. When did he start on first shift?
The first shift that he's on now started August 22nd of 2022.
Okay. And prior to working the first shift in August of 2022, what shift was he working?
He worked a swing shift temporarily from May 2nd of 2022 until August 19th of 2022. And that was 4:00 a.m. until 12:00 p.m.
Okay. And what was how many months was that you said?
It was May 2nd of 2022 until August 19th of 2022.
Okay. And then prior to the swing shift, what was he working?
He worked third shift from November 15th, 2021 until April 28th of 2022.
Okay. And then is that the only other shifts he's worked, or has he made other changes in his shifts prior to that?
He's made other changes prior to that. He worked second shift also.
Okay. And how long was he on second shift prior to working third shift?
From November 8th, 2021 until November 12th of 2021.
Okay, so that was a very short period, just a
Mhm.
couple of days.
Yes,
Okay. And then before that, was he on first shift again?
he was from May 24th of 2021 until November 5th of 2021.
And before that, did he have any other changes in his shift, or was that the last one?
Before that, he was on second shift from September of 2020 until May 21st of 2021. He was on second shift.
Okay. And has Porter been a consistent employee through that entire time frame?
Yes.
No gaps in employment?
No.
Okay. Good employee, comes in on time?
Yes.
Okay. Any behavioral issues or disciplinary issues at work?
No.
Okay. One moment. If there's an emergency situation that comes up with a worker's child, and in this case, Demetrius is his child that we are specifically talking about. If there were something that would happen where Demetrius needed to be picked up early from school or had a other medical emergency or some other type of emergency, does Porter have the ability to leave work early to take care of that?
Yes.
Is that something that he's ever needed to do before? To your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. But that is something that if there was a problem or something where he needed to be available for Demetrius, his employment would be able to work with him on that?
Yes.
Okay. Would he have to do like makeup hours or something potentially?
He could make up hours. That would be something he would discuss with his supervisor.
Okay, but that's not necessarily something that's required.
No.
Okay. Okay. I believe that's all the questions I had for this witness. Thank you.
Besides any cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Can you tell me that, you said that he might be on call for up to 2 hours on the weekends? Was that what you said?
No, he could get called in for like 15 minutes, but he gets paid up to 2 hours. I shouldn't have mentioned that, the 2 hours. I mean, he could be called in for 15 minutes or he could be called in for 8 hours. It could be up to 8 hours at a time.
Okay, and how frequently does that happen?
It doesn't happen that often. I mean, I could pull his time if I needed to and see how often it happens, but I
Well,
don't know
if
exactly how often that happens.
I would, if you could refresh or look at your records, we would like to know how often he gets called in for the weekend.
So do you want like how often in the last year he was called in?
Yes.
It looks like probably within the last year he was called in 12 times.
Is it usually at least, is it monthly or is there a pattern to that?
There's no pattern at all. It's just when a machine goes down.
Is he salaried or hourly?
He's hourly.
And can you tell me his hourly rate of pay?
Your Honor, I would object because I don't believe child support was an issue that we're discussing. So not sure what his hourly rate has to do with the parenting time schedule.
I'm going to take the testimony because
Okay.
as it relates to custody, I'm going to have to make a determination of child support, so I'll take the testimony.
Okay.
His hourly rate is $27.81 an hour.
Does he work overtime each week?
No. Occasionally he works overtime, but
And does he work a 40-hour work week?
yes.
Does Mr. Ward receive yearly bonuses?
No.
And is there any predicted raises that he will be receiving in the upcoming months?
No.
Is there any predicted schedule change in the upcoming months?
No, nothing predicted.
I, is it true that a health insurance card is provided for Mr. Ward for the medical, dental, and vision insurance?
Yes,
And are you able to supply a secondary card for the other parent?
yes.
Have you done so in this case?
I'm not sure. They're issued one card. I can order another one, or the employee can get online and order another one.
Has Mr. Ward asked you to order an additional card, to your knowledge?
Not that I recall.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Okay, Ms. Storm?
But you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I just saw that I was muted. During the times that he was called in the 12 times in the last year, do you know whether or not those were mandatory weekends that he had to do, or if those were the call-in situation?
I don't know. Some of them were like an hour here, an hour there. I didn't look specifically to see. Some of them were 10 minutes. I don't know if those were mandatory, or I'm assuming those were call-ins because they weren't full shifts. And I just did a quick scroll but I can print out a report if you guys need it.
I don't think that will be necessary, but I do appreciate that offer. I was just trying to get a feel where all of these call-ins, that he had to come in, or if some of these were a mandatory weekend. Does he have to have does he ever get mandatory weekends? To your
Yes.
knowledge? Is that a yes? Okay. And you indicated that over those 12 times, some of them were only 5 or 10 minutes long?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Ives, any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Garcia, that concludes your testimony. Thank you. You're free to go. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Do I have any other witnesses waiting at this point?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Mr.
I'm sorry,
Ward,
go ahead.
Mr. Ward, you've been sworn in, so you can proceed, Miss Storm, and I guess we'll get Miss Ives back because she muted, I guess.
Yes, I am here. Sorry.
Okay,
Did we actually swear in Mr. Ward though?
he was sworn in before.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Ward, can you please put your name on the record? And how old are you?
I didn't hear any of that, Miss Storm, so he's gonna have to speak up and project like you're speaking across the room because we can't hear you otherwise.
My name is Porter John Ward,
And how old are you?
40.
And where are you employed? And what is your job description?
Okay, we're not hearing any of that for some reason.
We're not hearing it either.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. We just
Let me.
couldn't hear him. I know the last two questions, we could see that he was talking, but we didn't hear anything.
Interesting. Okay, I'll try again. Did you hear his age as he said
Yes,
it?
we heard the age.
Okay, and Mr. Ward, where are you employed?
Advanced Special Schools.
Did that
Okay,
come
it kind of broke in and out. So again, sir, I know you're in the room with Miss Storm, but act like you're kind of talking to us and talk louder, because sometimes with those mics, they're voice activated. If your voice is too low, we won't hear anything.
If anything, I'm speaking louder than she is.
Okay, speak louder. We could hear that.
And just if I may, Your Honor, for the next two hearings, I know this is a Zoom meeting, but due to the fact that I've had technical issues and now we're having issues with my client being heard, would it be at all possible or acceptable for my client to be in person at our next hearing?
Well, let me think about that.
Okay.
We don't usually do that, and, again, I know you've had problems. Do you have an office that you could,
I work from home, Your Honor.
oh,
That's why we're at the
Possibly
courthouse
maybe
today, to
call
try and make sure we've got
Mhm.
room and privacy.
okay. Well, the other thing we could do is we had issues, you can always call the number and appear vis-a-vis, orally. You don't have to doesn't have to be on the screen, and usually you can always hear very well that way.
Okay. Well, then I will just continue on, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Just shout to us, sir, so we hear you.
All right. Now, Porter, did you hear the testimony of Stephanie Garcia about the number of hours you work each week?
I did.
Okay. And is that accurate?
It is.
Okay. And on the weekends, is the description regarding overtime, the weekend hours accurate?
No.
All right. Now, speaking up, can you clarify to the court about mandatory versus call-in time?
So how mandatory works, a couple days.
Speak up, sir.
Mandatory before, a couple days before the weekend. My supervisor might ask me that I need to work to cover any situation that's needed.
Okay. And is that when you said is that the mandatory one?
That would be a mandatory, yes. I don't have an option. They need me to be there.
Okay. And how?
As almost a supervisor position myself, I'm responsible for everybody.
Okay. How often do you get called in for that mandatory time?
That's not very often at all. I think I've only maybe done 2 Saturdays.
In the last year?
Yeah.
Okay. So of those 12 times that Ms. Garcia testified to, roughly, to the best of your knowledge, 2 of those times were mandatory and the rest were the quick come in as needed?
It is possible, yes. The short ones, they call me in because somebody can't figure out how to start the press back up. Or
Okay.
if there's a catastrophic issue, I have to come in and give a lead on what to do.
Okay. And so you work 6 a.m. until 2 p.m.?
I do.
And what city is that in?
That's in Battle Creek.
Okay. How far is your employer from, first, let's say Battle Creek, Montessori? How far away is
Hey,
that?
Miss Storm, you're breaking up now too, and
I'm so sorry. I'm going to get
Yes.
real close and be real obnoxious.
speak into the computer. We can hear you now.
I apologize for the faces being this close. During the start and end times, so you start work at 6. How far away do you work from Battle Creek, Montessori?
I believe it's about 3 miles.
All right, so that takes you approximately how many minutes to get there?
5 to 8, depending on traffic, stoplights.
Okay. And from Dudley, how far away is your work from Dudley?
About 15 minutes.
Did you say 15 minutes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And do you know how far away Battle Creek, Montessori is from Danielle's home?
About 2 miles.
All right, so it's about similar to what it is for you for work?
For work.
Okay, so she lives close to Battle Creek, Montessori. What about her employment?
Her employment's further away. I'd say 6 miles to the one and probably 65 miles maybe to the other.
All right,
If that's correct to my knowledge.
and is this based on your understanding of where Ms. Newbern is currently working?
My understanding.
And to your understanding, where do you believe she works?
The dude is a dispensary in Coldwater. And then Vegas Strip Gentlemen's Club in Battle Creek on Raymond Road.
Okay. And the one that's in Coldwater, is that the one that's really the 65 miles away?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do you and Ms. Newbern share your work schedules with each other?
And mine is consistent. It doesn't change ever. She does when she works at the dude, she shares that with me. To my knowledge, she only works Thursday through the weekend at Vegas Strip.
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, is what you estimate or think she works on at the Vegas? Or excuse me, the Strip?
Yes,
Okay. The other days of the week she works at the Dude?
I believe so.
When you say that's a dispensary, do you mean that's a marijuana dispensary?
Yes.
And do you know what her position is at either of those locations?
I believe she is currently the DJ at Vegas Strip. She was bartending, and I don't know if she still does that at the same time. As for the Dude, I have no clue.
Okay. And have you asked Ms. Newberg for her work schedule in the past?
Okay, Ms. Storm, you just went out again.
So sorry.
All I'm just saying is just project. Don't talk like you're talking to each other in the room. Talk like you're trying
Trying
to talk to
real
me.
hard to yell at the screen. I apologize.
Yell
I
at the
will-
screen if you
I'll
have
keep
to.
yelling.
What part do I need to repeat?
I think we heard that. It was just her question that I didn't hear. The next question.
Okay.
And of course, it fell out of my brain as I was laughing about seeing my face 2 inches from the screen. I apologize. As far as we already heard that, so you don't have a lot of flexibility in your start and end time.
Are you able to hear that, Miss Ives? Some
No.
reason it's not coming through.
Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can fuss with my sound settings on this just a little bit.
Now we can hear you fine.
Well, of course, now.
You try to call on the phone,
Yeah.
the phone call,
Their video.
but it could just be the mic, just unidirectionally, just picking up from.
Yeah, I think what it is it's your mic, and when you're off, when you have it showing on both of you, you're off to the side, it's not activating, so we can't hear it.
Gotcha.
Because when you turned it, it was fine. We heard everything, but when you turn it back, then when you're kind of going off to the side, we can't hear anything.
Okay. Did you hear what my question was, or do I need to repeat that?
You're gonna need to repeat that question.
Okay, not a problem. It's true. Is it true that you don't have flexibility in your start and end times for work?
I'm gonna
Yes, and
object. It's a leading question.
Excuse me, Miss
Let me
Ives?
correct. That was a leading question. I said
Now Miss Ives just froze up.
Oh, no.
Miss Ives, you froze up there, so I didn't hear anything as you were starting to speak.
I
I think you're
Meeting.
objecting to the form
We're
of
not hearing
question.
anything.
Can you hear me? Well, interestingly enough, a message for the first time today just said my internet was unstable, but it went away. So maybe you can hear me now.
We're hearing you now, yes.
And
I know what it
objected
is. The two of you are just conspiring to make sure that I have an in-person hearing, I think.
You caught us.
Go ahead.
I
If we continue, we'll ask you to get on your phone, and then you can mute yourself, and then you can talk through the phone. We can pick it up that way.
I objected to the format of the question, Your Honor, and that it was leading because she said, isn't it true that? And she went on to give a statement.
Okay, well, just
So-
reformulate the question, Ms. Storm.
Will do. Do you have any flexibility in your start or end times?
normally, no. There is some flexibility. I have to ask for it, and then my supervisors will allow for me to change start and end times, but then it would be a schedule set at that point.
Okay, and so if there's an emergency, though, you're able to leave work to handle those emergencies?
Absolutely.
And you do provide health, medical, and health, dental, and vision insurance for Demetrius?
Correct.
What time do you leave for work in the morning?
I leave my house anywhere between 5:30 and 5:45.
And so who is then responsible for ensuring that the children get to school?
On which days?
Well, I guess let's start with, Monday, and we can go through and we can just say what days change.
So early in the week, Demetrius's mom is responsible for his arrival to school, as he is with her in her care. When he is with me, we have help from the grandmother to get the children to school, as both children go to the same school on Thursdays and Fridays, alternating Thursdays.
Okay. And when you say the grandmother, do you mean your grandmother or Demetrius's grandmother?
No, this is Coralina's grandmother.
Coralina's grandmother. So Alicia Skurlock's mother?
Yes.
Okay. And is she someone who assists you with travel, transportation, and childcare as needed?
Just mainly in the mornings to get the kids to school. As obviously we all are at work already at this point. She makes sure they're up and around and available after school. It is me that picks them up.
Okay. Now, does the grandmother come over to the house to get the kids to school, or do you guys take the kids to grandmother's?
No, she comes to the house in the morning.
Okay, so the kids have the ability to stay home and get ready for school then?
Correct.
Okay. And on the days that if we have a result where the judge says that Demetrius is going to go to Dudley, how will you plan? And you are given nights where you have to have an overnight and you may be taking him to school in the morning. How will you make arrangements to ensure that he's able to attend school at Dudley?
Initially, I don't know how I would make that happen. I would have to totally change my work schedule, which then interferes with me picking up Coralina from school.
Okay, and when Coralina and Demetrius go to the same school, they're obviously getting out at the same time?
Right.
Now, what about when he goes to Dudley? How does that differ from when they get out of school?
On Wednesdays, they get out at the same time because it's very hard to be in two places at once. I don't know how you can split yourself into two and be in two places. It's not going to happen. So usually on Wednesdays, I was picking up Demetrius early. And then after on Mondays and Tuesdays, I was initially picking up Demetrius after I picked up Coralina.
Okay, so you were trying to, so did I hear you that you were trying to stagger as far as who gets picked up to meet the pickup deadlines?
Correct.
Okay, and we heard testimony earlier today about the fact that you've had to pick Demetrius up early from school, 15 to 30 minutes early on the days that you've picked him up. Is that accurate?
Roughly, yes.
Okay, and can you explain again why you've had to pick him up early those days?
It's the conflict of time.
How much time after school do you have to pick Demetrius up at Dudley?
At Dudley, it depends on the day. Again, Mondays and Tuesdays, after picking up Coralina, I had to go directly to the Dudley school to pick up Demetrius. And then on Wednesdays, I can't pick up one or the other at the same time, so I had to pick up Demetrius first in order to meet the deadline for Coralina.
Okay. What time does Coralina have to be picked up by?
3 o'clock. And that's every day.
Okay. And the switch topics just a little bit first. How do you and Danielle share responsibility for making the routine appointments for Demetrius's health, vision, and dental needs?
We try to conversate. It doesn't go as well as you would expect. A lot of what happens is I'm being told what's happening, and then I have to deal with it because then it's not followed through on. And then I'm still ultimately responsible because if somebody wants to drag their feet, I had to pick up the slack. So if the appointment needs to be made, then the appointment gets made.
So what do you mean by, so first you said you get.
Ms. Storm, we're not hearing you now.
Sorry, when you said that you are told what's happening, can you give more explanation to the court what you mean by that?
He needs to have this done. Has to happen. This is what's happening. This is how that goes along. I'm not consulted. Hey, should we get Demetrius in for this, or should we do this for that? I'm told after the fact on multiple occasions, but when it comes to certain things, I have to pick up the slack because it's not continued through.
Can you give an example to the court of a incident recently within the last year or two where it wasn't followed through?
The dentist.
Okay, what happened with the dentist?
The dentist, he needs to get his teeth checked.
Yeah, we're not hearing you now, sir.
He needs to get his teeth checked. He needs to get his teeth checked, is what I'm told. Okay. He goes, his mom takes him to Grace Health. I don't know what the issue is or why it didn't happen. Been said multiple times that he needs his teeth checked. I finally picked up the ball. I took him to trying to think of the name of the place now. Right now I'm drawing a blank. Highland Dentistry on Highland Street in Battle Creek. They told me that he had 4 cavities and then he needs to see a specialist. So I have now since had him to the dentist multiple times to get this specialist set up to get his teeth fixed.
Have you tried to talk with Ms. Newbern about these appointments?
I have
When did you try to talk with her about them?
on multiple occasions.
Can you give an example or like a rough time frame of when that was?
Without looking, I couldn't tell you the exact time or the date, but it's definitely been on multiple occasions that has happened.
I gave you a moment to review your notes. Would that refresh your memory as to when you had these conversations with her or tried to?
I would.
Permission to be able to give my client a moment to look at that?
Yep, go ahead, sir.
I came across some where I stated that I told him.
We're not hearing. We're not
Hey,
hearing.
Clark.
I've come across a few where a message where I said that I have told you multiple times that he has a dentist appointment. At this time, her Demetrius was with his grandmother.
And how do you know he was with his grandmother at that time?
She told me so.
She as in Donnie?
Yes.
Okay. And that text message that you found where it references the discussions about the dentist, what date approximately was that?
I reminded her on June 25th
Of
that
2023?
yes,
Okay, so June 25th of 2023 was a text conversation.
this was after I was denied my parenting time as usual at this time. I reminded her that he had a dentist appointment, which I had told her about a couple weeks beforehand. And at that time, she said he was not going to make it because he was in Detroit with his grandmother.
So did he end up making that appointment?
I had to reschedule.
Okay, and did you tell Ms. Newbern about that appointment?
I did.
Okay, and did Demetrius go to that appointment?
Yes.
Okay, and is that when you found out about his condition of his teeth?
Yes, that's when they referred me to the specialist that I found in Grand Rapids.
Okay, have you talked about the specialist with Ms. Newbern?
Limitly, yes.
Okay, did you tell her that that was what was recommended?
Yep.
Okay, did she have any response to you about that?
Nothing out of the ordinary, just okay, pretty much. No recourse in that matter.
So it wasn't like she said absolutely not or said absolutely yes. It wasn't a big confirmation or denial one way or the other.
No.
Okay. And those the Grace Health appointments, is that something that has he been to Grace Health before for dental needs?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Is that something where he has been billed for any appointments there?
Most of everything that his mother has taken him to, other than emergency rooms, are from Grace Health.
Okay. And how do you know about that?
I actually had to go down to Grace Health to get the documentation to understand what was going on with the insurance at the time.
Is that because you have the insurance for Demetrius?
That is correct.
Did you receive anything from any medical providers about the insurance?
I have not. The only thing I was told that I needed to go down and get the insurance straightened out due to the fact that they were trying to charge Donnie $700 and some odd for some medical bills that were due. And come to find out, at that time, I was not on the insurance and they had no information. That's why they were trying to charge her almost $800 for medical bills.
And did you get that straightened out with Grace Health?
I actually got that straightened out with my HR. I went to my HR and she took care of that for me.
Okay, that would have been Stephanie Garcia.
Correct.
Okay, so you let her know about the insurance issue and they helped you straighten that out?
Well, partially, she did her part in that aspect, but I had to get Donnie to re-add me to the documentation in Grace Health so that way I had access to that. They would not give me any information because I was not allowed to.
Okay, so when do you remember contacting Grace Health about that?
After our last court date is when I went and no, I'm sorry, excuse me. If you're talking about that specific time, that was beforehand. That was earlier in the year in 2023.
Okay, so would you say spring, summer of 2023?
I want to say it was probably spring because the snow was gone at
Okay,
that point.
okay. So after winter, but not full into summer yet?
Absolutely.
Okay. And we heard some testimony earlier today about Demetrius's glasses. Did he need glasses?
Yes, he does need glasses. I believe she took him to Grace Health for that as
Okay,
well.
we're not hearing you.
Lean in and speak up.
I believe she took him to Grace Health for that as well. I'm not sure if it was in their network or what. I'm not a fan of how Grace Health does their child care. I since took him to remember the name of the vision right offhand.
That's fine. We don't need the name. That's fine.
But I had to have this is what his job is. This is all he does. There's nothing else that this doctor does. He retested his eyes. He said that they were close with the glasses, but they were off.
The glasses prescription that he had?
Yes, from Grace Health.
Okay. And did that prescription get updated and tweaked to better fit Demetrius?
It did.
Okay. And did you talk with Ms. Newbern about these appointments and the eye issues?
I did. I told her I was going to have them rechecked because I didn't trust Grace Health in those few short words.
Okay. And does he have glasses now?
He does.
Okay. And who provided him with glasses?
I purchased those.
And that was from the eye doctor that we can't remember the name of necessarily?
Yes.
Okay. And do we know whether Danielle had purchased glasses for Demetrius?
According to her, yes.
Okay.
And
When you say according to her, what do you mean?
that she had paid for them. According to the records, that's not the case.
What do you mean according to the records? What records did you consult?
The records I received from Grace Health saying that she still owes $172 for said glasses.
Okay. Is that something that Danielle tried to talk with you about those that glasses cost?
No, she did not discuss anything about what was owed to those glasses.
Okay. Has she tried to ask you to compensate her financially for any of the glasses or medical services related to the dentist or the glasses as we've been discussing?
She hasn't taken them to the dentist. That would have been me. As for the glasses, we had mentioned to each other that they need to be paid or to split the cost. I spent personally almost $400 to get Demetrius's new glasses, the correct ones. And she did affirm that she was going to pay me half of that, and I have not received anything.
When you say she was going to pay you for half of that, do you mean Ms. Newbern?
Correct.
And how did she say that she was planning to help you with that cost?
She said she would split it with me.
Okay, was that via text message, in person, phone call?
That was via text.
Via text. And approximately when did you have that text conversation?
I would have to consult my notes in order to find that.
Okay. I'm going to have you flip through, but while you're flipping, I'm going to continue to ask you questions, okay?
Okay.
So you look for that date that we're talking about, but I'm going to keep going so that we're not wasting time. What about the routine dental and vision appointments, health appointments for Demetrius? What his well childs, things like that? Do you usually take him or make those appointments to Danielle, or how is that divided? That's okay. How the routine appointments for Demetrius, well child visits, that sort of thing. Who makes those appointments and who takes him?
Not hearing you, sir.
I'm sorry. I've been making appointments
For how long?
for the last couple of years.
Okay. And do you tell Ms. Newbern about those
I,
appointments?
I did tell her, like I said, I don't agree with how Grace Health works. I initially had told her that I was going to take him to Serial City for his medical needs, and as well as finding the dentist at the time for all that.
Okay. And do you provide Ms. Newbern with the information as far as who the medical providers are that you're consulting with or getting second opinions from?
I have.
Okay. Do you know whether she has had any conversations with those medical providers to ask her own questions?
Um,
Only if you know, I don't want you to speculate.
yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
That's okay. Do you know whether Ms. Newbern has reached out to these medical professionals that you've consulted with for a second opinion?
I do not.
Okay. Did you list Ms. Newbern on the paperwork with these individuals?
Yes,
Okay. So these medical providers would know that Ms. Newbern is also a parent of decision-making power and able to weigh in and get the information?
that is correct.
When Danielle makes appointments or takes Demetrius in for appointments because he's feeling sick or something like that, does she keep you updated on those appointments?
Rarely.
Say that louder for the,
Rarely.
okay, now, how do you find out then that she's taking him to these appointments?
That's after the fact.
Okay, do you find out via text message or how else do you find?
Whether it's through the text message or I find out when it hits my insurance.
Okay, and at that time, do you reach out to Ms. Newbern to discuss?
I have.
Okay, what has been the response?
It was with my time. You don't need to know.
So Ms. Newbern basically said, you don't need to know?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're aware that even if the court did order sole legal custody to one of you, that means that the other party still has the ability to access the medical records and personnel for Demetrius, correct?
I do.
That decision making, do you understand that decision making power and access to information are two different things?
I do.
Okay. And so even if the court did grant you a request for sole or primary legal custody, you would still need to discuss all of this with Ms. Newbern prior to and keep her informed of all of these things?
I do.
Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
Yes.
Okay. And do you and Danielle have the same access to the medical records for Demetrius?
Yes.
How do you guys have access?
Due to the fact that everything's still open, as I was re-added to the list at Grace Health, that's where I got my access back via the hospital for their records and Grace Health for theirs.
So we've heard some testimony today regarding getting access granted back. Tell us more about these incidents where your name is either missing or removed and you're added back.
For which instance specifically, or do you?
Um,
as a general?
I ultimately want you to talk about as all of them that you remember as best as you can. So starting with dental.
The dental, there was nothing added or removed at that point. He had not been to see the dentist. I made sure that happened. He has cavities that need to be taken care of. That's why he has to go to the specialist in Grand Rapids.
Okay, what about the information at Dudley where you originally had access for pickup and drop off under Danielle, but did not at one point?
I had very limited access and had to clarify what access that I needed. Um, as for emergency contacts and all that, I was the last on the list to be called out of 5 people. If you know anything about how the school works and when an emergency happens, they call the first contact and go down from there. Me being local, I should not have been last. Not only that, I was his father. I should not have been last on the list of 5 people
When did you observe these records at Dudley?
when I went to the open house.
And that's the open house for kindergarten that happened in, I think, August, they said in 2023?
Correct.
Okay. And did Alicia Skerlock go with you for that open house?
She did.
Was Danielle at that open house?
We had missed her. There was miscommunication on time. We showed up when we told it was available.
Okay, so, but Danielle did attend that to the best of your knowledge?
Apparently we had just missed her by about 30 minutes.
Okay. And during that time, how did you find out that you weren't on the paperwork or didn't have access, or how did you find out the access issue?
I consulted Martha, their secretary.
Okay. Did you look at the records at that time?
I did.
And you said you were what number on that list?
Yes.
Do you know who was above you on that list?
Her mother in Detroit was number 2. Garcia Tate was number 3. And her Aunt Cody, was number 4.
And do you know where Drecia or Aunt Cody live?
They live here in Battle Creek.
Okay, and aunt is obviously Ms. Newburn's aunt. Who's Drecia?
That's Danielle's best friend.
A friend, okay, not a family member?
No.
Okay. And did you try to talk with Danielle about the fact that you weren't on the well, let me pull back and actually ask, when you saw that you were on the records, what was your designation? Did you have a descriptor as to who you were to Demetrius?
I was listed. I wasn't even listed as a parent.
Did you make efforts to try to correct that documentation that day?
I did.
Okay. And explain to the court more about what happened with the access being, what the access was originally, when that changed, how it changed to your knowledge, and what resulted.
The access was changed due to my request. That the list needed to be updated to a proper manner due to the fact that it was, if you're calling somebody in Detroit, there ain't nothing that's going to happen in Detroit faster than me being 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away. Once I requested that, they had to go through and change a bunch of things to make it sure that it was correct, and they added me as a parent and not just as a name.
Did you create there was discussion about a code for being able to sign in or out. Did you ever have your own code?
That was with the daycare, and the only code I had was the one I was given when he was initially enrolled.
Okay, so I don't want to get them confused because I guess I just did. So Dudley and the bright light are different. To the best of your knowledge, the Dudley issue got straightened out?
Yes.
Okay, and have you had any further issues with Dudley and the access to information since then?
The only I get limited responses when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes with Demetrius's mannerisms and how he's been doing in class, like the 2 fights that he was in, that are just glossed over all of a sudden now that nobody seems to recall what happened. One of them was in the 21st century, which was 2 days before the fight. He got in at recess after that.
How did you find out about these incidents?
Because I had to ask the teacher. It is on the Remind app that I asked Miss Van Warmer what happened with the fight at recess the couple days after he had the fight with his friend in 21st century.
Okay, and do you remember approximately when that happened?
I'd had to look at it exactly. I'd just seen that. I'd had to roll back through.
Okay, let me just briefly, since I know exactly where that is in this book of notes. or will. Just looking at this, refresh your memory.
It does.
Okay, without reading it now, when approximately was that?
That was November 27th when I asked about the fight for recess.
Okay, November, fucking A. Sorry about that. I apologize. I thought I disconnected. November 27th, that's when you said you reached out and discussed the fight?
Yes,
Okay. And did you try to talk with Ms. Newbern about this issue?
we had a discussion about it. That was verbally. It was at pickup.
Okay, so you and Ms. Newbern discussed it verbally, not over the phone?
If there was, it was very limited.
Okay. And then let's go to the Bright Light Learning Center. So with the code access to be able to sign in and out, did you ever have your own code?
I only had the code that was given to me when he initially enrolled.
And whose code was that?
I believed it was mine, but I believe it also could be a shared code.
Okay, was that a code that was shared with Danielle to your knowledge?
I'm assuming so, yes.
Okay, and we heard testimony about that being revoked. Do you know why you were no longer able to use that number?
That was after Demetrius started going to summer school at the Montessori.
Okay, and why did you have Demetrius be enrolled in Battle Creek Montessori during the summer?
One, it was a free program because the money was a big thing and it was talked about quite a bit. Because even before, when Demetrius had issues with the daycare, we talked about putting them in the Montessori, but the money aspect for their pre-K at that time was unfeasible.
All right, and that was when you were notified of that $215 a week cost?
I was notified initially of the $215 cost when Demetrius was enrolled, and that I was expected to pay half.
Who told you that?
Danielle did.
Okay, and did she ask you to, or how did that conversation go?
It was told that I was doing that because the only thing that I knew about the daycare was when I was told about it initially. I'm looking at a couple different daycares. I want to put Demetrius in. I said, okay, that's fine. But when it came down to it, she said, I like this one, now this is where he's going, this is what you're paying. I said I didn't agree to that, and I refused to pay, which I ended up paying twice per request because somebody didn't have the money to do so.
Okay, so at least twice during the 2023 enrollment period summer, you assisted Danielle with those costs?
Yes.
Okay.
No correction. That would be, and yeah, that would be it'd be 2022. Sorry.
That's
That
okay.
would be the summer of 2022.
Okay, so summer of 2022 is when you would have helped Danielle out with 2 weeks payment?
Yes.
And did you pay the full $215 each time?
The one time I paid $215. The other time I paid half.
Okay.
You paid what?
And go ahead.
The second one, you said you paid what?
Half.
Half, okay.
Half.
Got it.
And we heard that tensions were high between with Bright Light. Why were tensions high with Bright Light?
To be honest, I don't understand how that came about. I had been going there to pick up Demetrius a few times, and then I noticed that the ladies started treating me different. Up to that point, I had no conversations really on the aspects of what was going on in Demetrius's life with them. It was none of their business. When they started treating me differently, as in kind of standoffish, very short, curt, kind of rude in responses to me. I never once had an issue with any of the teachers there up until this point.
When did this change approximately happen?
As Miss Lindsay stated, it happened after Christmas in 2023. So it'd be Christmas of 2022 in the year 2023.
Okay. And how often did you speak with Ms. Potter at Bright Light?
To be honest, a handful of times. I'd see her in passing when picking up Demetrius, and I did have a discussion with her, asking her what was going on, why my access was no longer valid. That's when I found out that I was removed. She neglected to say that I was removed at this point. Let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. She neglected to say that I was removed at this point when I asked her why I had no access.
What was the explanation then that was given?
I have no answer for you right now. I don't know what's going on.
How long did it take before you got a straight answer about what happened?
2 weeks.
And we heard testimony about the fact that Demetrius had some bumps, bruises, and abrasions. Tell us about those, the frequency, what it looked like, and what all resulted.
It was sometimes it'd go every couple weeks. He might have a little bruise or abrasion on his arm, his leg. One that really stood out was one on his cheek, just below his eyeball, right here, and it was a nice little lump. They said he tripped and hit after asking what had happened, because nobody knows what happened. I was like, there has to have been something, obviously, because he would have cried over that. I know for sure. And he had a nice lump underneath his eye and a small cut. There's pictures to that effect floating around.
Okay. Approximately when did that happen?
That was actually the straw that kind of broke the camel's back and to the decision on possibly pushing Demetrius to the Montessori.
So this bruise and bump, the bump and cut on his face was the tipping point for you?
Yes, and because there was no messages relayed through their little app to state what had happened. Nobody knew nothing. After asking the teachers afterwards, then we'll find out. This is the response that we were getting.
Did you try to talk with Ms. Newbern about what these bumps were, and specifically the one that was on his face?
Absolutely.
What was her response when you tried to talk with her?
She was livid at that point.
Was she livid with you or with who?
With the bright light.
Okay. What did she say to you, if anything?
As any typical mother would say, that's a mother bear in that aspect. We need to think about moving Demetrius from bright light.
Okay. And so when did that conversation happen with Danielle?
We started digging into it more into the Montessori right at that point. We gave her all the information that she asked for, multiple times to that effect. We finally got to go and do a walkthrough. And then that's when they told us it was going to be $525 or $500 a month, which was significantly lower than what Bright Light was asking for. As Bright Light was wanting $215 a week.
So that $525 a month was for the Montessori daycare during the summer?
No, that was to end out the school year. In their pre-K.
Okay, so that was for pre-K. Is there a cost to attend Battle Creek Montessori?
No.
So for kindergarten and up, there's no cost for him to attend?
No.
Okay. And you said that there was a walkthrough done. Who was on that walkthrough?
Me, Danielle, and Alicia.
And that was done at the Battle Creek Montessori location?
Correct.
And Ms. Newbern was there?
Yes.
Did she meet the teacher at that time?
At that time, they didn't have a teacher specifically for him, because we were doing the walkthrough for the pre-K. We pretty much met all the teachers, everybody that worked there. There was a few students in classes, so we got to see what was going on to an extent, how they were interacting at that time.
Okay. And what made you consider Battle Creek Montessori for daycare first?
It helped that Coralina was going there at the time, so I had kind of a running knowledge of what was going on, and how they worked with her learning needs.
Okay. And what was appealing to you about Battle Creek Montessori for Demetrius specifically?
how more hands-on they are compared to like traditional teaching where you got to sit at a desk and sit still and listen. They allow you to move around, sit on the floor, sit in a different chair to relax and to get that uh that focus.
Okay. And have you met with the Demetrius's teacher or the principal or anyone else on Demetrius's team?
I have.
Who have you met with?
I've met with this teacher. I've met with the principal briefly, just mostly in passing with the principal. Everybody there loves him. He is outstanding in their eyes.
Okay. And have you tried to talk with Demetrius's teacher at all about what sort of assistance you might be able to give him at home?
They didn't really have a whole lot to say. He is doing extremely well. I do believe that there is something coming up here soon for another parent-teacher conference early in the year.
And when you get that information, will you be providing it to Ms. Newbern?
I will.
That way, because we already heard testimony that the school would be able to send that out. But you'd be able to send that out to Ms. Newbern also?
Yes.
Okay. And oh, one of my earlier questions while we were getting cutting in and out was, did Ms. Newbern provide her work schedule to you on the regular?
She used to. Initially, when before our incident, when we filed for this case, and that was sparingly due to the fact anytime I upset her, she would stop sending it to me and then deny me my time. That is why we were here.
Okay. What do you mean she'd get upset, stop sending, and deny time? Can you explain more to the court what you mean by that?
Anytime I didn't agree with something that she wanted or anything that she wanted to do, then she would deny me my time and tell me that was not needed.
What was the schedule that the two of you had been following?
I would pick up Demetrius every day from the daycare, um, Monday through Friday. The only time I would not pick her up, Demetrius up, was when Donnie had the day off. Up until that point, Mondays was a rare thing. Tuesdays was more often. And then it got to the point that there was no days off. She would have Thursday or Friday off, and Thursday and Friday he stayed with me.
And as far as a schedule for Demetrius, do you believe it's important for you?
You can't hear you now, Miss Storm.
Sorry. When it comes to that after school time with Demetrius, specifically on Monday, Tuesday, and alternating Wednesdays as the schedule right now, why is that time important to you?
As typically before, when he was in the daycare, that was our time every day to bond. I would pick up Demetrius after Coralina got out of school, so it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, up until 6 o'clock in the evening when Donnie would arrive there to pick Demetrius up after she had gotten out of work.
And how long had you guys been doing that schedule?
As long as I was not agitating her and her into denying my time.
And when you say when you guys disagreed, what's an example of something you would disagree about that would result in this action?
That would vary. It could be a drop-off time, a pickup time. If I was not available to bend to her will, to cover any aspect that was needed.
How often did she ask you for flexibility or changes in the schedule to address her work or other needs?
Quite often.
Can you give us a little bit more detail about what quite often looks like? What was the frequency? How long would it be? That sort of thing.
It seemed like every other week it would be a Sunday or a Wednesday that I would exercise more time with Demetrius, where I'd end up taking him to daycare that morning, the following morning being Monday. Sunday nights was a regular thing quite often. Then it became that Wednesday nights was also quite often. And then after I filed, when I was denied, then it cut down to just Wednesdays through Sunday, every other week, and then Thursday through Sunday.
So you, after you initiated the custody case, you would then only have Thursday to Sunday or Wednesday to Sunday, depending on which week it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And why did you feel the need to file instead of just going along the way you guys had been?
Because she was denying my time with our son.
Okay. Did you try to reason with her or come up with some other alternative for these instances?
As she refused at that time. It was a final straw. I was not told that he went to Detroit the week after. What started this, let me go back just a little bit. What started the final cutoff was when Demetrius was going to summer school at the Montessori on Thursdays and Fridays. She asked why he was not in the daycare. I said he doesn't need to go to the daycare on my days. He can go to the Montessori. At this time, she she received him that Sunday. She said that I will not be needed at all, and then I'll be limited to my time. The specific days of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. At that point, and then that's at that week is when I filed for custody.
Okay. And do you remember that we filed a motion regarding that after school childcare, the after school parenting time that you had with Demetrius?
That was mainly that was to get it back to what it was before that situation happened.
Okay, so what would a typical week look like for the two of you for that schedule?
I would have them from the time I got out of work. Well, after I'd pick up Coralina from school because it was during school time, from 3 till 6 p.m. when Donnie would get out of work. She'd get out at 5. It takes her about 45, 50 minutes to get to Battle Creek to where we live.
Okay, from Coldwater or?
Yes.
Okay. And after the temporary order got put in place, preserving that time for you, did you receive that time?
No, I did not.
What happened?
It was very limited. I was told that I would only get him on Monday, and she would be there at 4 o'clock to pick him up.
And was that earlier than the times that she was picking him up prior?
Absolutely.
What time was she getting out of work according to your knowledge? I should back up. Prior to this change, what time was she typically getting out of work and then getting there?
She would get out at 5 and be at the house by 6.
Okay. And after the temporary order went into place, how did that change?
At that point, she told me when she was getting out of work. I did not receive schedules up until recently.
Did she, so she wasn't sending you her schedule anymore?
No.
Did you ask?
I did ask. I'd ask every week. Then it got to the point where it was just for the whole month, I believe of November. I only got him on Monday, and it was just for 20 minutes or so while it took for her to get to my house from her work. Then her job changed again, and then it started to go to about 5 o'clock.
What do you mean her job changed again?
She went back to the dude. She was working at a different job, and she was getting out, and it would take her about 15 minutes to get to the house at that point.
All right, so what happened with her employment from what you understood and what was communicated to you?
I'm assuming that the new job didn't meet her needs.
When did she start that new job and which one's the new job?
I can't verify that.
Do you know where that location
I
is?
do not.
Is that a location other than the dude or the Vegas Strip?
Yes,
Okay, so this is a third location we don't know?
correct.
Okay. Did we ask either Ms. Ives or Ms. Newbern for that information?
I did.
Did we ever get a response from either?
The only response I got was that is another dispensary, and that was the only information I had.
Okay. And you said at a certain point she started sending you her schedule again?
Yes,
When did that start?
a few weeks ago.
Okay, and what's on that schedule? Is it still just the Vegas Strip and the Dude, or?
So the schedule never shows Vegas Strip. It just shows when she works at the Dude.
Okay,
The Vegas Strip, I assume that she works her normal there. That would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday.
and do you know what time she goes in, or don't you know?
It's bar hours as they call it.
So is it safe to say it kind of fluctuates a little bit?
I believe they open at 6, so she's got to be there like 5:45.
Okay. Um, what was your opinion about the fact that Ms. Newbern changed her work schedule after?
Hey, we're missing, we're losing you, Miss Storm.
Oh, sorry. What was your opinion or view or perspective of the change in employment schedule for Ms. Newbern after the entry of the temporary order?
That was, to me, that was vindictive, trying to limit my time, as in per the court to order me back the same time that I had received before. She purposely got a job that would limit my time to the bare minimum.
Had she ever been taking Mondays off or getting out early on Mondays prior to all of this?
Very rare did she have a Monday off. It was more Tuesdays that she had off than any.
Okay. And did the days off on Monday or Tuesday increase after the motion?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And at any point, have you been able to exercise that afternoon parenting time after school?
The limited time that I do pick him up for that, I see you shaking his head.
Can you not hear us? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Did you not
you
hear
were
my
cutting,
question?
you were cutting out.
Okay, I'll repeat my question.
Hold on, before you do that, I see it's 4:45 and we end up having to clear the building before 5 o'clock here, so
Might be a good stopping point then.
yeah, it might be a good stopping point, and then we
Okay.
will reconvene on March 22nd at 1:30 PM, and hopefully we won't have the same problems. If we do, what we'll do is have you call in and put it on again on the speakerphone. It'll be much better.
I will say that at least during lunch, I did find out the reason as to why I couldn't connect via the building's Wi-Fi and had to use my phone. So I did get more stable internet.
Yes. Okay, but they don't have it, right?
No, no.
I can't understand that, but okay. Why don't we do that, as we will adjourn for the day, and then we'll see you back on March 22nd.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it.